Well, this is Monaco as I remember it, because it's 2 weeks later this year, and just look at that fabulous picture. The sun is shining, the sky is blue, it's hot, hot, hot. There's fantastic tension here, and like the punters at the Monaco casino, I am looking for a miracle here in the very near future. The miracle will be if they all get round that first corner at the bottom left of the map on your screens, to the left of the letter F, because that is the notorious Saint-Devote that you are looking at now. Soon 22 cars will be arriving at that in one solid lump, with 800 horsepower propelling each of them. It's a very different grid this year. Michael Schumacher up front for the 25th time in his career, but next to him Jarno Trulli, and behind Jarno Trulli in the second Jordan is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, as we look at His Serene Highness there, hearing the Monaco national anthem. So, 77 last week, Prince Rainier, one of the younger fellows as far as I'm concerned. And I was saying I'm looking for that miracle, and they are going to get all round the corner on the first lap, because the tension here is going to be absolutely terrific. It is now, but they need an enormous amount of concentration to last 78 laps of this race. Only 8 cars finished last year. It's tremendously tiring. And as ever, strategy is going to be very, very important. We're expecting only one pit stop. But last year, there was a very late pit stop from Heinz-Harald Frentzen. He came in on his 57th lap. And I'm expecting quite a lot of them to come in round about lap 50 on this lap. Agree or disagree?
Well, the optimum is just over half distance, so I think Michael Schumacher will be taking that route. He'll be expecting to get into the first corner first and scamper off into the distance. He can't really two-stop, because you never know when you might get caught out with a pace car situation and your advantage is eroded as you're trundling around behind the pace car. But he'll certainly be able to have a little bit less fuel on board on the start than the others. I would imagine that the Jordans will be running quite heavy, and that could pose a great problem for the 2 McLaren drivers, who I believe may well have a faster car in race trim than the Jordans, and then there'll be quite a disorderly queue behind them, I'd imagine, Murray.
Yeah, the real problem is the midfield. It's whether people like Jenson Button, who's down at 14th, Mika Salo, Wurtz in front of him, Eddie Irvine, who's in 10th position, even Ralf Schumacher, who's an excellent 9th in the Williams BMW, are going to get round that first corner. Those were the eyes of Jarno Trulli. Here is David Coulthard, third on the grid, and in front of David Coulthard, the Scarlet McLaren of 4 times Monaco Grand Prix winner Michael Schumacher. As I said, it's 78 laps. There is not a seat to be found here. There's not even standing room on the banks just beneath the Royal Palace, which overlook the Rascasse corner and the Anthony No corner. That's turn 17, the last. The banks are solid with people, most of them wearing Ferrari red, because many of them are from Italy, looking for the man you see front left there with his new helmet livery, incidentally. Nearly all red instead of all blue as it used to be in his Benetton and recent Ferrari days. Michael Schumacher with the yellow from the German flag behind. So Michael Schumacher to the right, the yellow Jordan of Jarno Trulli. Behind that is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and away they go on the formation lap. Green lights, there'll soon be those 5 reds, and when they go out it'll be the start of the 78th Monaco Grand Prix, one of the most historic races in the calendar, the only real street circuit that is left.
Yes, wouldn't it be nice to see Jaguar and Jordan have a good day today? I really wish they could get some points and tighten that championship up a little bit and turn it around. But you have to say there are 3 drivers that have had the pace all through the weekend, the 2 Macca boys and Michael Schumacher. but it was Barrichello who was fastest this morning, as I know you said earlier, Murray, and I spoke to him and he's really pumped up. He said the car is so much better, but the track conditions now will be totally different to the 9:30 warm-up this morning. We've got a lot of temperature out there. This race is much later this year than normal, and it certainly has meant completely different weather conditions. You could almost always guarantee you'd have one wet day at the Monaco Grand Prix, but this year it's been glorious. The downside of that is a track temperature that's over 40 degrees centigrade, and there was a quick shot of Coulthard sitting on the line there. They were blowing a fan that's normally used to cool the engine at him, and I know the drivers are getting immensely hot inside the cars.
Well, they've exited the unique feature of Monaco, and that is the tunnel underneath the Grand Hotel, which replaced the old, original, much shorter tunnel.
And Diniz has just left the line here in the Sauber, so he's the best part of a lap behind. Now, he's got to get to the back of the grid before the light procedure starts, otherwise he must go down the pit lane.
Yeah, he won't be able, as they can if they start a bit earlier than that, to be able to take up his original position, which was 19th on the grid. That's where he qualified. He'll have to start from the back. I think he'll be all right, actually, because they're threading their way round the Rascasse now and into turn 16 and 17, the last on the circuit lap.
Yes, on a circuit like this that's very slow, relatively speaking, just a 90-mile-an-hour average, plus the temperature of the day we've been talking about as Michael Schumacher comes past our commentary box window here to take up his position. You get a lot of heat soak, and it can give you vapour in the fuel system, and that's probably why Diniz's car wouldn't start.
Well, now, it's going to last about an hour and 40 minutes, this race. They're going to be changing gear about every 2.5 seconds. Just think of that. Michael Schumacher's speed average over his pole position lap was 95 miles an hour around this circuit. Quite amazing.
Yes, and if you remember last year here, the two Ferraris on the right-hand side of the grid, your left, their right, absolutely scamped. And somebody, it's a Benetton, I think, down there, has stalled the engine. So that must be Wirtz, I would imagine, stalled the engine. So that will be a restart situation, Murray. They'll have to restart, and Wirtz will have to stay at the back of the grid. It's
Alexander Wirtz. He's 12th in position. You see the orange lights flashing there. That means the start, which didn't happen, has been aborted, if you follow me. And that will not be at all welcome. They're going to have to do another lap.
Yes, and we've got some very, very hot Formula One cars sitting on the grid now. They were sitting there a good half-minute, a slow lap round. So, as I was talking about, a lot of heat soak now coming up into the engines. That can cause problems.
And I remember vividly the time when Michael Schumacher stalled his Ferrari on the grid and when he was in pole position. So out come the mechanics, out come the trolleys, out come the starter motors, the electric starter motors, and the tension ebbs just a little.
Yes, look, they're putting the fans on the McLaren. They know what they've got to do to get rid of that heat. And the mechanics, having just dragged all of the equipment back to their garage, they've now got to go back. And the restart procedure, Ferrari, of course, they're at the sharp end of the grid, which is at the extreme opposite end to where their garage is. So Ferrari with a big job to do to get back there and sort Michael Schumacher's car out.
I wonder what's going through Michael's mind at the moment, because there is a precedent for this where Schumacher in pole position, as I just said, stalled on the grid and they had to abort the start, and he had to start from the back, as Alexander Wirtz will have to. And Wirtz is not going to be a very popular man on the grid for all the trouble he has caused. He's in enough trouble already. That's the dry ice going into the pods from the Ferrari and the other cars to try and keep those radiators cool, to stop the heat soak or to reduce it to the minimum that Martin was telling you about. Wirtz, as I was just saying, is under duress. He's having a very difficult time to keep his place in the Benetton team, and this won't help him.
Well, what will happen now is that lap they've done will count as part of the race. Obviously, there'll be one less racing lap now.
Well, this is an extremely well-drilled organisation, Formula One. The teams are ready for any contingency, including this one. This is by no means the first time that a race has failed to get away at the end of the formation lap. and it won't be the last. So you're seeing exactly what happens now as they get ready for that second start.
So I'm hearing from down in the pits, Murray, that Wurtz's car was actually smoking as he came through the last corner and to the line. So Wurtz, I think, may have some kind of technical problem anyway.
Well, we saw what can happen yesterday when Jacques Villeneuve in the Honda-powered BAR came out to do his start of his qualifying run. And he had only just got to the Grand Hotel hairpin when his engine started to smoke, and he pulled off at the portiere, and then he had to run 1.1 kilometers in this searing temperature, and it's pretty hot here now, I can tell you. The temperature is 41 degrees on the track, it's 24 degrees air temperature, and the sun is burning. These people are all in 3-layer Nomex overalls. They've got fireproof socks and boots and gloves. They're wearing balaclava helmets. They've got a crash helmet on top of that. The cockpit is like a heat box anyway, because they've got the special plastic collar that fits around the edge of the cockpit to prevent their heads moving too much if they're involved in a crash. So it really, really is enormously hot. They can get 50-degree temperatures in a really hot race. It won't be anything like that now, but as I said earlier on, the tension here is enormous because everybody is working now in conditions which they've got ready for in the past, but they haven't done it in race conditions that they're experiencing now. So hopefully that start of the next formation lap will be soon. Restart is going to be in 1 minute's time. When I say the restart, I mean of the formation lap.
Yes, 14:08 local time. We think they're preparing Wurtz's spare car in the pits because it seems as if the car was actually smoking. You can see the gap down there. It's gone now where Wurtz's car was. We think it was smoking as he came to the line, engine smoke. So Wurtz, I think, will have to start from the pit lane. No cost to him now. He would have had to start last anyway. So Wurtz will start from the pit lane once the pack has gone.
And remember, it's not going to be a 78-lap race now. It's going to be a 77-lap race. Hand clutches for the majority of the drivers. Some of them are using a foot clutch still. Michael Schumacher went back to Fiorano in Italy on Friday when everybody else was having a rest day to practice his starts, to make sure in a situation where they're not allowed to practice starts at Monaco that he would be really ready for it when the lights go out here.
Yes, they look like they're struggling to get Wurtz's car done in time. Obviously set up for Fisichella by the looks of it, and they're significantly different in physical size, Fisichella and Wurtz. They may struggle to get that car ready to join the start.
You're absolutely right. I did my usual check on who's got the spare cars. A lot of the teams here have got 4 cars. McLaren and Ferrari, Jaguar have got 4 cars, and so have Prost, but Benetton have not. And the car is set up for Giancarlo Fisichella, who's much shorter and stockier than the tall, lanky Alexander Wurtz. It normally takes them about 12 minutes to change the car, to change the pedals, to change the seats, to change the safety belts and everything else that they have to do. I think they'll probably be all right. But now you see the pits are being filled up, the pit lane is being filled up because the circuit itself has been vacated.
Well, the Italians call the spare car the muletto, the mule, I guess, but I'm not quite sure why we all call it the T-car. I didn't know that once, and I can't remember now.
You would throw that one at me. It's training. It's the training car.
That's the one,
is the training car, good. Martin. Yes.
Sorry to drop that hot potato on you.
I was ready for it, actually, because somebody asked me exactly the same question yesterday. They also asked me why... No, I won't tell you that now. Because they're coming through at the end of the formation lap, the second formation lap, for the start of the 77-lap Monaco Grand Prix of the year 2000 Y2K, with Michael Schumacher in pole position, with Jarno Trulli, who said, and you heard him, I make a good start and I would hope to be leading into the first corner.
Yes, but I think Trulli was nervous in the press conference straight after his front row qualifying yesterday. I thought he was nervous when when I spoke to him, and the last thing he needed was a false start, because that's the period of time where it's most difficult to keep yourself under control.
Yeah, and this is Michael Schumacher's 133rd Grand Prix. He has won 39 of them, only 2 less than the great Ayrton Senna, whose points total he has already succeeded beaten to become the 2nd highest in history. And the Monaco Grand Prix is... Go, go, go! Schumacher gets away. Trulli slots in front of David Coulthard, and the grid order is maintained with Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 4th position. But Mika Häkkinen is still in 5th position, so there is no change as they climb up to the Hotel de Paris, round Massenet, the left-hander, through Casino Square.
Yes, everybody got away very poorly, and I'm not surprised. The red light was on for so long there. The red light seemed to be forever going out, and I'm sure all the drivers were champing at the bit there. It's unusual. And normally it's just over 3 seconds and it's away. And there's Häkkinen making a good move on Frentzen. Red flag.
Well,
I think the computer is out, Murray. I think that's probably why it's a red flag.
Well,
there's no data come up. They've gone...
Oh, look at that. Well, this is the worst possible thing that could happen at Monaco. First of all, we get an aborted start. Then we get the computer sticking and the race restarted again. Now we've got this kerfuffle, and let's have a look and see what it's the 2 arrows, you see. That's Jos Verstappen in the orange arrows, who was nerfed from the inside there. Now,
by Button, I think it was Jenson Button gave him a little tap on the back wheel there as they went into Grand Hairpin there. So, but we've got no data on the computer at all as they've gone through the various sectors on this lap, and I suspect there's been some kind of power failure. I can't... Certainly the red flag was out long before this little car park.
Well, the whole of Formula One, like the whole of our lives these days, seems to be controlled by computers. The cars trip a computer mechanism as they cross the line so that we all get their times and the gaps in between. And in many ways, the old way was the best, but not here today.
Well, they're going to have to send men out with starters. They can't haul all of those cars off the track. They'll have to switch the cars off. They'll be fried in about a minute, which they've already had much more than parked there at Grand Hotel Hairpin. Nobody got away well. I think everybody was surprised just how long the red light stayed on. Ralph, a reasonable start there, but sort of general chaos. They did well to all get through the first corner, but if they're still down there at the Grand Hairpin, they'll have to switch the engines off, and they can't just crane them off the circuit. They'll have to send men out there with starters, I would have thought.
Well, if Jarno Trulli was a bit nervous, you thought before, Martin, he's going to be even more nervous now, as we look at him sitting in the Jordan in the 2nd position on the grid. Michael Schumacher, of course, has been there, done that, whatever it is in Formula One. And he's a very cool, calm, collected customer anyway. Well, there is the Jordan being... This is the 3rd time that a Jordan has been involved in a real happening this year, because Pedro de la Rosa went into the barrier very heavily this morning.
That looks a bit like an Arrows to me, but here's the car park that we were talking about, and they've switched them all off. They had to, as I said, the engines will just melt, and I really think they should allow the mechanics out there to start those cars.
David Coulthard climbing over the barrier. Yes, I'm sorry, an orange Arrows that was being craned off the circuit. And the Arrows team has had a very tough time here altogether, because Verstappen's been off. You can see the blower there pushing cold air, because there's an ice box there as well, pushing cold air into the engine compartment of Schumacher's Ferrari.
Yeah, it's because the overflow system on the radiator system is just like your road car. It'd be a total loss system if they get any expansion. And obviously they can't get that water back in, can't get any water back in. In fact, at this point, if they're declaring a restart, they can't add anything to the car whatsoever, certainly by way of fuel or change the tyres. But I'm going to be very... This is an unusual situation, I have to say, but I'm going to be very surprised if they basically make those drivers abandon those cars.
That's Genet's car that you're looking at now, the Minardi of Marc Genet, who's straddling the cockpit. You can see his left leg is out and his foot is on the ground, his right leg is in the cockpit. There's a Prost down there, there's Jenson Button's car, there's the Sauber in the background. Behind the Sauber there's one of the 2 BARs, and then finally Mazzacane in the 2nd Minardi. News from James Allen.
Yeah, Murray, I'm down here in the pit lane, and there seems to be a lot of confusion. I've talked with Ferrari and McLaren. They have no idea why this race was stopped before the incident at the Lowe's hairpin. I'm now with Eddie Jordan. Eddie, can you shed any light on this?
Well, it has to be that incident, because I can't believe that that incident wasn't already reported back. There's no other reason for it, and you know, perhaps in hindsight it looks as if there's no way the race could have continued. The place is completely blocked, and that's the only reason that I can possibly imagine as to why it was stopped.
But the way we were looking at it, the red flags were up before the accident happened, Eddie.
I'm sure. I think that's just a matter of I think if you actually got your time switch out and had a look back and replayed the action, you'll find them feeling there's absolutely no reason for the race to be stopped, and that's why they would have done it.
So let's talk a little bit about nerves now, Eddie, because your driver's on the front row, you've got another one on the second row of the grid. Obviously, you're pretty keyed up before the start. You've had an aborted start and now a second restart. How are they feeling right now?
Well, I can only imagine that they are very uptight, just want to get this thing started, because it's not helping anyone, it's not helping the viewers, it's certainly not helping us here in the pits, so you can imagine what it's doing to the drivers. It's also not helping the engines. The ambient here is extremely high, and there is no air flowing around the circuit, and what's actually happening is that you get this air that's very, very weak and very hard for the drivers. The adrenaline is going to play a big part in this race, and the fitness of the drivers is going to be key.
Okay, we're looking at a replay of this incident. It's obviously a huge blockage. Back to you, Murray.
Well, you can see what happened there. Jenson Button, the right-hand wheel, front wheel of Jenson Button's Williams, went in between the two wheels, left-hand side of Pedro de la Rosa's Arrows. I'm right opposite now, Jos Verstappen's Arrows, which is 15th on the grid. Pedro de la Rosa was 16th on the grid, and his car isn't here. You've seen it craned off. So if they've got the third Arrows ready, and remember it was virtually destroyed this morning and they've got no replacement, they haven't got 4 cars here. There he is running in. He will have to turn out in the car that's been rebuilt since this morning, and that is Jenson Button running in. So Williams have got 4 cars here.
I think Eddie Jordan was probably right. I think the first we saw of that incident was as a replay and not real time. And there was certainly no red flags hanging out at Grand Hairpin before as they had that incident on the corner there, so that could well have been the red flag situation. But there certainly was no computer information up here, and we get the same stuff as the teams by and large.
Well, they say there's nothing new in Formula One. There is, and this is it. Heaven knows how many Grand Prix I have seen, but I've never seen this, because there are 5 drivers, to my certain knowledge, having to double all the way around the harbour from the Grand Hotel, and that's a long, long way. I've seen Pedro Diniz running in. That's Heidfeld with the yellow band round his helmet. Behind him with the yellow band at the top is Ricardo Zonta. Jason Button's been running in. Pedro Diniz has run in, and here they are. It is the Formula One marathon, and in the lead at the present moment is Pedro Diniz, leaping over the wall, across the track, through the crowd, who will give him a big hand, I'm quite sure. Zonta is flagging. David Coulthard there has taken the short route and is already home. But the question is, at the moment, are these drivers going to be able to get into their spare cars if they've got them? Well, I'm sure they are, because they're not going to start the race without them. And here, coming up the hill towards us, is Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR. That will be the spare car, I'm sure. So Villeneuve round the Massenet at the Casino Square. The race is going to restart at 2:31 our time. Now, our time is here in Monaco. That is 1 hour ahead of Great Britain, and the time now is 2:19. So there's another 12 minutes or so to go. And thank heavens, all the cars are clear of the Grand Hairpin, thanks to the crane truck, no doubt.
Now, amongst those coming back, in fact, Villeneuve got back to the pits and he's gone back out again. I'm not certain if he was in the spare when he went back out again or not, but he's gone back out again to take up his grid position. And there are several drivers.
Now this is covered under Article 156 of the regulations. There's 3 types of race stoppage really, and this is case A. Less than 2 full laps have been completed, and if the race can be restarted, then the following applies. The original start shall be deemed null and void. The length of the restarted race will be the full original race distance. Drivers who are eligible to take part in that race can start either in their race car or their T car. And this is an interesting one, any driver who was forced to start from the back of the grid or the pit lane during the original start may start from his original grid position, which puts Wurtz back on the grid effectively. And well, it goes on. There's more details.
Funny sort of justice.
Yeah, but you've got to have rules. You've got to have a procedure. I mean, it all looks a bit of a fiasco at the moment, but there is a way of channeling this back in to try to become a motor race. But it's certainly struggling at the moment, isn't it?
Here they are running back, and in the lead is Pedro Diniz. Behind him is Ricardo Zonta.
And he's going up the inside, look.
Yeah, and also out there are Nick Heidfeld, the Prost driver. Jenson Button is already home. Pedro Diniz, as you see, is across the track into the crowd. And now they've got to get back into the pit lane. David Coulthard was out of his car very quickly indeed and taken his helmet off to cool down, no doubt. As Alexander Wurtz there in the spare Benetton, I expect, is waiting ready to come out of the pit lane to start from his original position, having aborted the first one. And that's 12th position. Louise Goodman.
Yeah, I'm down with James Robinson down at Williams. James, did Jenson say anything to you after that incident?
No, he didn't. Obviously, he was straight out of the car from what we could see, and he's just trying to get back. Obviously, he's just got in a spare car, but the pit lane technically is closed, so we're going to see if we can get him out or not. Probably won't.
Bit of a tricky situation for him to have to deal with for such an inexperienced driver. Do you think this is going to affect him? Is it going to rattle him?
Have to wait and see.
Thanks, James.
I don't think it's going to rattle him. He's the most mature, calm, laid-back chap of 20 years old that I've ever met in my life. Most of the situations that Jenson is coming up against now are new to him because this is very much his first season in Formula One, and a very distinguished season it's been so far. This is only his 7th Grand Prix, and he has scored in 2 of them. And this is his first street race in Formula One, and he's been performing extremely well already. He's only starting 14th on the grid, admittedly, out of 22, but he had all sorts of problems, as did most of them, because congestion is one of the big problems at Monaco. You've heard us talking about how difficult it is to get past cars, and James Allen is there in the pits.
Situations like this, Murray, sometimes give rise to the funniest little things. All the sort of glamour and the glitz and the build-up that we always have at the build-up to the Grand Prix. And now we've had an aborted start. And one of the funniest things I've seen for a long time, there's one portable toilet at the end of the pit lane. Michael Schumacher decided immediately upon rejoining the grid he wanted to go to it. And shortly afterwards, Mika Häkkinen and Ralf Schumacher arrived and had to stand in an orderly queue while Michael sped to Penny, and then they all came back out again. It's a very, very strange day down here in the pits.
So the Germans got to the loo as well, first of all. And David Coulthard is sitting as Scotland's representative in the McLaren. He's taking care of that problem, I presume.
Yes, Coulthard wiping his face. Obviously, the beads of sweat, they come down and they're salty, obviously, as you all know, and get in your eyes, and it's the last thing you need when you're driving around here. But so this, I sort of tend to disagree with you, Murray, that Jenson won't be fazed by this. This is a 3rd start for a difficult Grand Prix. He's caused one of the restarts with tripping over the arrows, but it's so easy to do down there in that hairpin. And a little bit of massage to the neck there of one of the Prost drivers.
It's Nick. I think it looks like John Alesi from the bulky build. And it looks to me as though he's got a problem, and Alesi is starting 7th on the grid.
That's just a bit of relaxation stuff,
I think. It is Jean Alesi. Incidentally, it gives me the opportunity to say, as I said in qualifying yesterday, that there's a pretty fraught situation at the Prost organisation because their technical chief, Alan Jenkins, has left, and the entente cordiale is not at all cordial. There's a very fraught atmosphere there. But to their credit, as a result of, ironically, something that Alan Jenkins found out in the aerodynamics area, the Prost is going very much better here than it has in the past. And Alesi has benefited that, 7th on the grid.
Yes, Lacey going extremely well.
Jarno Trulli, second on the grid. He's already started this race, or thought he'd started it in the formation lap 1, formation lap 2. Third time lucky, we hope. You may remember I said when we started talking, and that was 26 minutes ago, that I was looking for a miracle. A miracle would be that all the cars got round the first corner. We had that miracle, but then almost immediately afterwards, after Alexander Wurz had caused the first start to be, or the first formation lap to be aborted, we had that multiple coming together at the Grand Hotel Hairpin. And here we are again for the third time. Now they've still got to do 78 laps, the full race distance, and they've already done 2 laps in very demanding conditions. And something that really does bear talking about is that one team in particular is going to be really sweating now, and that is Jaguar, because they have had a starting problem due to their clutch problems. Very, very small clutches. They're only about the size of a saucer these days, and they're transmitting 800 horsepower. And you have to get all sorts of things right. You have to get the engine torque right, you have to get the clutch bite point right, and various other things. Jaguar haven't succeeded in doing it to their entire satisfaction so far, and I know we're a bit worried about the start here. They're going to be even more worried now that they've already done it twice. But then the same problem is going to apply to all the others as well, I think to a lesser extent. But it would never surprise me if there was going to be a lot of problems at the real start. So we've got about 3 minutes to go now to, hopefully, the start of the third formation lap. The third formation lap will be starting in about 3 minutes' time. And one team in particular then is going to be extremely worried, and that is the Jaguar team, who have had a lot of start problems due to clutch problems in previous Grand Prix. They've taken off twice already this afternoon. Now they're going to have to do it a third time, but it's going to be pretty tough on everybody.
It certainly is. The regulations are absolutely clear that the length of the restarted race will be the full original race distance. It certainly used to be the case where you counted that false start lap, but we're in a red flag situation. We're not in a safety car situation. Obviously, there was no point. You saw for yourselves, the safety car itself got blocked behind the little traffic jam. But just to remind you, this race restarts, the restart procedure is at 31 minutes past the hour.
And it is now 29 minutes past the hour. 29 minutes past 2 in Monaco, 29 minutes past 1 in Great Britain, 29 minutes past something else in the many other parts of the world, India, Pakistan, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, that are listening to us at the present moment, not to mention Malaysia, which we're looking forward to going to for the last Grand Prix of the year. Well, the spectators, and there are thousands of them, must be a record crowd here at Monaco. I have never seen the place as full as it is now. I've been coming here for a good few years. They've already had 2 lots of excitement, and they're about to get a third. We're coming up to 30 minutes past the hour. 1 minute to go to the start of the third formation lap. And please, everybody, join me in keeping your fingers crossed. We all desperately want to get this Monaco Grand Prix, the 58th of these great street races, on the road, quite literally.
The last time I can remember 3 starts to a Grand Prix, I caused both the restarts in 1987.
Well,
Austria 87. I had a coming together with Eddie Cheever on the first one and a suspension failure on the second one. But
I was saying to myself, what a hooligan that fellow Brundle is.
I can't imagine what you used to say about me, Murray, when I couldn't hear you when I was down on the track. I dread to think.
No, that was a very tricky one. Well, let's hope it doesn't happen again. 14, 30, 34, 35, 36, 37. We're coming up to 31 when Michael Schumacher will let in the hand clutch and away will go the Ferrari to lead the rest round.
Well, if you thought it looked a bit skinny down the far end of the grid there, that's because we're expecting Wurz and Button at least to be starting from the pit lane, and Denitz probably not even in the race at all.
Because we've seen his car parked down at the station hairpin. Away goes Schumacher. Well, he's had some practice starts here today to add to those he's had in Fiorano on Friday.
Yes, I think if Michael starts like that for the real thing, he'll be in 4th place by the first corner, but obviously he will not. He just wanted to get some temperature and into those rear tires. Your best chance when you're pulling away to actually generate some temperature. And we think Della Rosa is also not starting the race.
So let's remind ourselves what did happen when we thought the race had started. Michael Schumacher kept his first place as he went into Saint-Devote. Jarno Trulli did make a good start, but not as good as Schumacher. He was in 2nd place. David Coulthard did not lose a place, nor did Frentzen, and Mika Häkkinen was still in 5th place. So some of them, and that's Alexander Wurz in the Benetton, the man who caused all the trouble in the first place, and he is going to be starting from the pit lane. That means to say that he will have to wait until all the other 21 cars and drivers have passed him before he can accelerate away up towards Saint-Devote. This is the famous chicane outside the tunnel. It's where Wurz went off a couple of years ago. We got that fantastic shot of his nose of the Benetton harpooning the bales between him and the Armco barrier. There is Barrichello, there is Alesi, there is Fisichella, that is Ralf Schumacher. Eddie Irvine is starting 10th on the grid. His teammate Johnny Herbert will be 11th. They're coming down to the Rascasse underneath the red bridge. Then there's a little curving right, that's Jenson Button sitting. He's going to be starting from the pit lane as well. You heard what James Robertson said to Louise Goodman, and the mechanics finally tightened down the side pod on Jenson Button's Williams BMW as Michael Schumacher. Now fingers crossed, everybody, fingers crossed, we must get the Monaco Grand Prix away this 3rd time. Schumacher pole position, Jarno Trulli 2nd on the grid. The silver and black McLaren behind Schumacher is David Coulthard.
Yes, and these clutches are just about the size of your fist now on a Formula 1 car. They're not really designed for a lot of restarts. This is putting them absolutely on the limit.
1 light and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and... Come on, out! Go! Schumacher good again. Trulli good again. And Frentzen slots in front of Häkkinen, so the grid positions have been maintained. Are they going to get round Saint-Devote? Yes, I think they are. Schumacher leads. Trulli, Coulthard, Frentzen, Mika Häkkinen into Massenet, into the Casino Square. Now they're coming up to the point where we had problems at the station hairpin. They turn into the Mirabeau, drop down towards the station hairpin, and this is it.
Yes, Ralf Schumacher, the main mover there. Ralf Schumacher getting a good start for the 2nd time, and I think he has catapulted past John Alesi. Barrichello there behind Alesi, so Barrichello a poor start.
Yeah, Barrichello only qualified 6th on the grid. He's been passed by the mercurial Jean Alesi in the Prost. Up into 6th position, a potential points position, but we've still got 77 laps and a bit to go as they come down to the chicane for the first time with Michael Schumacher in the lead. Jarno Trulli is still there. David Coulthard treading on his gearbox, and they stream through. Absolutely critical this into the swimming pool section. They approach it at some 100 miles an hour. And this is the Rascasse, and look at the gap already between Schumacher and Trulli.
Yes, critical there for Michael Schumacher. He needed Jarno Trulli to get away in front of Coulthard. That's going to give Schumacher such a breathing space unless Coulthard can do something about Trulli in these early laps. Otherwise you just settle into a rhythm, but you've got to take such a risk to get past him. He needs the championship points, but he also needs to try and win this motor race, and he's got to keep some pressure on Michael Schumacher if he can. And look at the lead Schumacher's got.
Yeah, the worry man is Mika Häkkinen. Worry because he's worried. He's in 5th position. He did not make up any places at the start. Look, he's still locked in behind the Heinz Harald Frentzen as Schumacher leads and is increasing the gap between himself and Jarno Trulli. And Mika Häkkinen is looking all the time as he comes down to the station hairpin for a way round Heinz Harald Frentzen as...
And if he does that too many times, he'll lose his nose cone, Murray, and then he'll be half a minute behind when he stops to have that change, or worse still, lose a front wishbone. So Häkkinen there having a bit of a wild stab up the inside of Frentzen having nothing of it into the hairpin there, and it's so difficult. You've got to be so focused on your piece of road that staring in your mirrors through there, watching out for people trying to overtake you, is just not on the agenda.
And Ralf Schumacher is in 6th position. Jenson Button, who started in the pit lane, is in 19th position. And there is Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar, who has been passed by his teammate Johnny Herbert. Johnny Herbert was 11th on the grid behind Irvine. He's now 10th in the race ahead of Eddie Irvine. So, there is Trulli, there is Coulthard, and Michael Schumacher is disappearing from sight as they go through. But it's very, very close behind them. Michael Schumacher, as Häkkinen is looking again, and Frentzen coming up towards Sandervoort. But the German Heinz Harald Frentzen and the Jordan Mugen, which is going so well here, knows this course very well indeed. He lives in Monaco, as does Mika Häkkinen, and he knows that if he places his car correctly, it's going to be virtually impossible for the Finn to get by. And now Mika Häkkinen is 5 seconds behind Schumacher.
Yes, possibly Häkkinen's car's a little bit lighter to try and get him through the traffic early on. But one thing's for sure, he's certainly got a faster car and he can't do anything with it at the moment. I was wrong about Denitz not starting. He's in 14th place. But Button and Wirtz did start in the pit lane, then 18th and 19th, as you've already said, Murray. And De La Rosa is the only one actually not in the race. So 21 runners at the moment.
Through the tunnel, into the chicane, there is Ralf Schumacher. And you can see the gap between himself and Mika Häkkinen, and it's not very much. As Jean Alesi follows Schumacher in 7th position, ahead of Rubens Barrichello, who has lost 2 places. Very disappointing for the Ferrari driver, because he qualified in 6th place. He was fastest in this morning's warm-up, declared himself happy with the handling and the balance of the Ferrari, but never, in spite of that, he has lost 2 places in this race. And losing them is not too difficult. Getting them back is mighty difficult.
Yes, just to remind you why Häkkinen's down there. He had a poor first run in qualifying, and then traffic really for the next 2, and a fairly mediocre last effort, still struggling a little bit with traffic. So Häkkinen lucky in a way to qualify 5th, but it's compromised his afternoon. And look, Michael Schumacher, as we thought, scampering away, a well over 3.5 second lead already.
And remember, Michael Schumacher's already won 4 of the 6 races this year, with the declared objective of taking Ferrari back to the top in terms of winning the Drivers' Championship, which they have not done since Jody Scheckter did so for them in 1979. It's been a long, long haul, and there's news from James Allen.
Yes, this is just what McLaren feared, not least because they got Jarno Trulli in front of him, but more importantly, he's the only one of the leading gaggle that's on the super soft tyres. And what we've seen throughout the weekend is that they go off, they understeer terribly between the 2nd and the 7th laps of running. So this is going to mean that Trulli's going to hold them up even more, while Schumacher is able to pull away. It's exactly what McLaren didn't want for that reason.
You can see how close it is, and here are the top 10 on lap 4 out of 78. Schumacher leading by 3.5 seconds. Jarno Trulli is 2nd, half a second ahead of David Coulthard. And there they are. 4th is Frentzen, 5th is Häkkinen, 6th is Ralf Schumacher, 7th is Jean Alesi, 8th is Rubens Barrichello, 9th is Fisichella, Johnny Herbert is 10th, and Eddie Irvine in the 2nd Jaguar is in 11th position. Jenson Button is still down in 19th position. Coming up the hill towards us, it's Frentzen and Häkkinen and Schumacher and Alesi, and then Barrichello. Here is Michael Schumacher, 4 times a winner at Monaco.
Yes, and his car's been so reliable. When you think back, other than that brake problem in Silverstone last year, I think the last time Michael Schumacher's car failed him and had any kind of engine blow-up was in Melbourne 1998. So we know he's got a super reliable car. We also know that Jordans tend to run a very big fuel tank, and they tend to run very long. So they're sitting quite pretty at the moment. Häkkinen, if anything, just falling slightly away from Frentzen. Don't know if he made a mistake on the last lap, but Häkkinen not exactly carrying Frentzen. He's 9/10 of a second down.
Well, Frentzen was 4th last year, and he came in on lap 57. Here he is coming towards us. Hakkinen can do nothing about him, nor can Ralf Schumacher, Alesi, Barrichello, Fisichella, Johnny Herbert you just saw coming towards us in the Jaguar, and we're on lap 5, still an enormous distance to go. The crowd has settled down. It's very hot indeed. As I talk to you, the track temperature remains at 40 degrees as the leaders round the Rascasse. Now, Schumacher is putting up fastest lap after fastest lap. He's just gone round in 1 minute 24.3. The fastest lap last year was 2 laps quicker. Mika Hakkinen.
Dream scenario for Michael. He took 1.5 seconds out of the opposition on the last lap, 2 seconds out of Frentzen. So Michael with the track to himself, the car working beautifully. He's just enjoying himself. As far as he's concerned, there's nobody else around this afternoon. It's a private test at the moment.
Yeah, and it's not as though he is a new boy. Far from it. He made his first sparkling appearance in 1991 at the Belgian Grand Prix, driving for Eddie Jordan. That lasted 1 race before he was snaffled by Benetton. So he's very much a veteran now, and 4 times the winner here.
Well, Coulthard's got to get closer than that to have any chance of overtaking Trulli, but then he's really got 2.5 opportunities. One's coming out of the tunnel into the new chicane. The other is after the casino down into Mirabeau. If Trulli's got to wear Trulli down, or you can have a very wild stab up the inside into Grand Hairpin, but there's a good 50-50 chance that one will end in tears.
Michael Schumacher nearly 6 seconds ahead of the yellow Jordan there of Jarno Trulli. You can see how close David Coulthard is, but then Frentzen is 3.5 seconds behind Coulthard's McLaren. Out of the Antonino corner, up towards Sandervoort they come. Frentzen has got Hakkinen snapping at his gearbox, but the Finn can do nothing about it. Ralf Schumacher coming up the hill towards us in the BMW is in 6th position. But this race is a long, long way from being finished. We're on lap 7 now, another 71 laps to go.
Yes, Coulthard wasn't able to run this car in the warm-up. It failed, so he had to run in the T car, and he was still making adjustments to it on the grid, even after the reconnaissance laps to go round to the grid. So it seems to be working well, but obviously he can't move with the Jordan in front of him.
Now, this is the sort of drive I've been waiting for a long time to see Jarno Trulli have the opportunity to have. He was absolutely brilliant in karts. He went straight from karts to Formula 3, and he was the German Formula 3 champion, which may seem a bit odd for an Italian, but that was the series he was driving, and there's Michael Schumacher leading. And Jarno Trulli won the German championship and then went up to the Minardi team. He actually led the Austrian Grand Prix 3 years ago in one of his first drives for the Prost team, and now he's in a car that can at minimum give him 2nd position if he stays where he is. But I'm also asking myself, how much longer can the 2 Ferraris go on being as reliable as they have been? As you heard from Martin, it's over 30 races since Michael Schumacher went out with any kind of a mechanical function.
Yes, now McLaren have to get their thinking caps on, because it's clear, whilst they've got faster cars than the Jordans at this stage of the race, they have not got enough extra speed to just breeze past them. So now what they're going to have to do is change their strategy and find a gap in the back markers. And this is assuming the Jordan drivers don't make a mistake, but they're both young, strong and very fit. So they're going to have to find a gap in the traffic where they can stop their man early, give him some free air, and see if they can leapfrog the Jordans that way, because, as I said, unless Coulthard can pressurise Trulli into some kind of error, he's not got enough traction or straight line speed to simply breeze past.
Which is the sort of thing that happened in the Ferrari team last year. They finished 1st and 2nd last year. Michael Schumacher won in 1999. His teammate Eddie Irvine was 2nd. And it was largely thanks to the fact that Ross Brawn, the Ferrari technical chief, changed Eddie Irvine's strategy during the race, and he was the only one of the top 6 who stopped twice, because he came in as late as lap 56, and as a result of that, and the fact that Mika Hakkinen had a problem at the Mirabeau and stopped and had to get back onto the track again, Eddie Irvine finished in 2nd position. So there is the Jordan, followed by the McLaren, and that is Ralf Schumacher. So Frentzen and Hakkinen up the hill towards the Macedon.
Yes, yet another new fastest lap of the race as Michael Schumacher extends his lead, as you saw, to 8.4 seconds after just 8 laps. That means he's going to be...
There was roughly a 4-second gap between the fastest and the slowest in the warm-up, the half-hour warm-up this morning. And now you can see that Michael Schumacher is carving his way through the field. Just the one retirement so far, Pedro de la Rosa in the Arrows, who actually did not get away.
You're on board with David Coulthard. You're running third in this Grand Prix this afternoon. And as you can see, all he's got is a face full of Jordan rear wing. And what would be so easy for Coulthard to do is on a corner like he's just gone round, just to clump the barrier, just turn in a fraction too early while you're slightly unsighted, and it'll just spin you around and pendulum around, and it's so easy to do when you're focused on the car ahead of you.
And this is a perfect indication of the fact that it is of paramount importance to qualify well at Monaco. If you qualify well and get a good start, you get the situation that we've got now, because the pole position man is leading. The man who was second on the grid is second. The man who was third on the grid is third. The man who was fourth on the grid, and it's him, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, is fourth, and Mika Häkkinen is fifth, as we ride with David Coulthard chasing Jarno Trulli into the Portier, where Senna went off in 1988, into the tunnel and through the tunnel, and they go through this tunnel and exited at over 160, building up to 180 miles an hour, as Jos Verstappen exits the tunnel and goes across the chicane.
Yes, I was just about to say, amazingly, from the middle of the pack, Jos Verstappen's just done the fastest time of anybody in the race through the midsection. Now I know why. He basically leapt across the chicane. He may or may not get penalised. The stewards will have a look and see if he got some kind of advantage, either made a place or retained a place by doing that, and I don't think Verstappen will have a problem on that one.
No, I don't think so. He was 2 seconds ahead of Deniz in the Sauber, who is in 14th position. So lap 11, we're exactly 1/7 of the way through the Monaco Grand Prix. Schumacher's now leading by nearly 11 seconds with another fastest lap. Lap after lap, Michael Schumacher is extending his lead over Jarno Trulli. There is the Jordan, followed by David Coulthard's McLaren.
Michael's just going to be running and hiding.
Well, this is a very, very long World Championship. This is race 7. There are 17 races in the championship. And remember what happened to Michael Schumacher at the British Grand Prix last year, when he had just lost the leadership of the World Championship to Mika Häkkinen. But at the present moment, Schumacher is running away with it. He's 18 points ahead of Mika Häkkinen, and Schumacher is on a possible 10 World Championship points at the moment. Häkkinen is on a possible 2 World Championship points at the moment. So if things stay as they are, and I don't suppose for a moment they will, Schumacher would be extending his lead over Mika Häkkinen by a further 8 points. And it would be looking very grim indeed. Now that is Johnny Herbert and Eddie Irvine just deciding he's not going to make the chicane, and I don't think he would suffer. I don't think Verstappen's going to, and I don't think Irvine will either.
Yes, it's very easy to take that decision to scamper across that no man's land. There should be big spikes in there that stops him going across it. It's too easy to take the soft option there.
Yeah, the lines, those red and white lines of the chicane, not at the hairpin there, but at the chicane, are just painted on the ground. There was a time when they actually had a raised wooden structure, and if you thumped that, you were in trouble with a puncture or a broken wheel or broken suspension. But they thought better of it. They just painted the lines on the track, and as you've heard from Martin, if you cross the chicane, you benefit, that is, you pass a driver, you will be penalised. You can see they're running wide there quite deliberately, but if you just nip across and you don't gain from it, you are not penalised.
Yes, but if they perceive that you would have lost a place because of your misdemeanour, they nailed a Formula 3000 driver yesterday, for he didn't gain a place, but surely he'd made a mistake and managed to keep his place somehow, so he got a 10-second stop and go penalty, which with a 60 km/h, 40 miles per hour speed limit down the never-ending pit lane here is quite a penalty indeed.
And you're certainly not encouraged to do it regularly. So Mika Häkkinen will be a gigantically frustrated man. He's now 17 seconds behind his World Championship rival, Michael Schumacher, tucked in behind Frentzen, with Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW confidently holding on to that 6th position and a points position. Now, where is Jenson Button in the other Williams? The answer is he's still in 19th position. Because although he's riding underneath the rear wing of Gaston Mazzucato's Minardi, and this is the first time too that the Argentine driver has driven at Monaco, Mazzucati is not letting Button through, and as I said earlier on, if you don't get some help from the driver in front, it's going to be virtually impossible to get past. So why, you may say, do they hold a motor race at a place like this if you cannot pass? Well, in fact, most of the Grand Prix circuits these days are very difficult to pass on. The performance of the cars is similar. They're all top drivers, and the big problem is an aerodynamic one.
Yes, but you've got to have different styles of racetrack. You can't, I mean, in the ideal world of safety and all of that sort of thing, you'd end up with a long straight and all the spectators 500 metres away looking through binoculars. You've got to have different types of circuit, test the drivers. The qualifying here plays a much bigger part than at normal racetracks, but it's all part of a very special weekend, a very specific kind of racetrack, and it should be in the calendar, no doubt about that.
Oh yes, absolutely, it's magic. Now, we are not seeing much of Michael Schumacher because he is out on his own so much. He's 12 seconds ahead now. He's just done yet another fastest lap. He's streaking away with this race. His fastest lap, which he has just done, is 1 minute 23.6, which is 1.4 seconds slower than Mika Häkkinen's fastest lap last year. As a matter of interest, Michael Schumacher has the lap record here. It's as long ago as 1994 in the Benetton, which is a 3.5-litre engined device, and they're 3 litres these days. And that was 1:21, so he's about 2.5 seconds slower than his own all-time lap record as Frentzen, Häkkinen, Schumacher go through the chicane on lap 14 out of 78.
Yes, that was back in the days, though, Michael's fastest time when they had wide, uncut
big
slicks.
boots.
So, and around a circuit like this, it makes a tremendous amount of difference.
So the swimming pool section, and Fisichella is putting on a bit of a charge now. He is in 9th position, tucked up behind Rubens Barrichello. Now Barrichello is 8th in the Ferrari, cannot get past Alesi's Prost, who cannot get past Schumacher's Williams, who cannot get past Mika Häkkinen's McLaren, and Mika Häkkinen is in 5th position. Fisichella closing up right on the rear wing of Barrichello's Ferrari.
I can't help but watch Häkkinen and think he's having another one of those days where he doesn't seem that interested. It's just a feeling you get on the season so far in some respects, and Mika, he just doesn't look really on it in his normal way there. He's falling away again from the back of Frentzen. In a way, though, I think that's what Coulthard should maybe do. Just back off a little bit, cool his tyres down, and come back and have another run at Trulli and try and distract him in that way. I think now they've settled into a rhythm, you just get in a trance following the car in front of you. You should really, I think if he just backs off a bit, cools the tyres, but then, you know, if they come up against back markers or Trulli makes a mistake, then he wouldn't be in a position to maximise on it. So yeah, it's a difficult decision.
And it's you can understand that the McLaren people are not bringing Coulthard in spite of the fact that he can't get past Trulli in front of him, because we're only on lap 16, and even if he was on a one-stop strategy and they decided to change it to 2, it would mean he'd be going out with a terrific fuel load and coming back into the race during traffic.
Well, yes, they're nowhere near the window for stopping. I would have thought the window to stop would be somewhere 38, 40 laps into the race through to 55, 56. So until we get, I would have thought, at least into the 40s, McLaren are hamstrung on any kind of tactics they can play.
Now, Schumacher knows that, Ferrari know that, McLaren know that, but they can do nothing about it. And Jordan will not be at all unhappy with this situation. Jordan have not been performing to their satisfaction this season so far. They were 3rd in the championship last year behind Ferrari and McLaren. This year they're down in 5th position, but behind Benetton, But if they stay where they are now, they will be moving up and probably getting past Williams, who are currently an unexpected third.
I asked Truly a question on the start line that I asked very specifically, did he think it would be more physically or mentally demanding? And he said both. I think he is one of the very fittest drivers physically in Formula One, but I wonder if he was ready to take this sort of pressure. But 3 restarts and 17 on their 17th lap of the race, and Truly shows no sign of bending whatsoever, but it's a long afternoon ahead of him.
He is gigantically fit. I mean, he's taking part in the upcoming New York Marathon. That's how fit he is. And he's also very fit mentally. I think we tend to lose sight of how long these drivers have all been racing in some kind of motorsport. For instance, Ralf Schumacher drove in karts for 14 years before he came up to Formula 3, and Ralf Schumacher's only 24 years old, and Jarno Trulli will be in much the same situation. Now we're looking at the McLaren chasing the Jordan.
Yes, now Trulli is very slow at the moment. He was 1.6 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher on the last lap, and that's allowing the pack, look, to catch them at well over a second a lap. Now Coulthard's going to get a hurry-up call, because he's soon going to have Frentzen, Hakkinen and Ralf Schumacher on his tail, and it's because Trulli just does not appear to have the pace of the others at this stage of the race.
With Michael Schumacher leading on lap 17 by 17 seconds. So he's been pulling away at the rate of a second a lap. And he's soon going to be in a situation where he can come in, stop, take on fuel and new tyres and get out still in the lead, which is a racing driver's dream of home. Michael Schumacher then 17 seconds ahead of Jarno Trulli, who's got David Coulthard right behind him. There he is, David Coulthard. Frentzen is now catching David Coulthard. There is the Jordan, and behind him is Mika Hakkinen. So things are closing up nicely, and Mika Hakkinen is putting on a tremendous charge in 5th position. He's really pressuring Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Here he is, there is Frentzen now. There is Mika Hakkinen. They're going round the Massenet. So Jordan leads McLaren, Ferrari leads the race, and Ralf Schumacher is 6th.
Yes, it looks like they've all sort of had a meeting and said, how can we make this as easy as possible for Ferrari to win this race, because it's just playing so much into Michael Schumacher's hands. He'll be grinning from ear to ear in the cockpit of the Ferrari at the moment, but as you've said before many times, Murray, anything can happen, and it often does.
Yeah, and into the pits comes the high wing Williams of Jenson Button from 21st position, so it looks as though he's going to be a retirement. He was 19th. And yeah, this is Button going out of the race. And that's a comparatively new experience for Jenson Button too. He failed to finish in Australia, and he failed to finish in Imola. And he's going to fail to finish from his first Monaco Grand Prix. What the problem was, I obviously don't know. So we now have 2 retirements on lap 19. The first De La Rosa in the Arrows, the second Jenson Button in the Williams. That leaves 20 drivers. Nobody has been lapped yet. Nick Heidfeld in the Prost is 20th and last of the runners at the present moment. And it is Trulli, Coulthard, Frentzen, Hakkinen.
It's a great shame for Jenson Button. Now, there's a lot of speculation, which we've covered, of course, that Montoya coming back from America, taking his seat at Williams next year. And just when you need some sparkling runs, he's just not been lucky. I think he's shown a lot of skill, a lot of maturity around here, but it's not been a great weekend. The last thing he needed was a first lap incident and then a retirement before he could really show any kind of skill around this, one of the most demanding racetracks in the world.
And you're absolutely right, Martin. Although it's happening very slowly, Coulthard is staying right behind Trulli, but Frentzen is catching Coulthard with Mika Hakkinen right behind him. So we're very soon, there is Frentzen, there is Mika Hakkinen, there is Ralf Schumacher, here is Jean Alesi in the chromium-plated helmet, and very soon we're going to... Oh, and out goes Alexander Wurz. Well, yet when things start to go wrong for you, they go wrong all the time. And we're going to get another indication here of how good the Monaco marshals are. They are absolutely terrific. looking at Jos Verstappen, followed by Pedro Diniz. They are 13th and 14th. And I'm just trying to work out, well, Nick Heidfeld is now 64 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, and he is lapping about 1.6 seconds a lap slower than the Ferrari. So in another 10 laps or so, which is about where I expected it to be, the Ferrari is going to be lapping or coming up to lap Heidfeld.
Yes, well, you saw Trulli going into the new chicane down at the beginning of the harbour as Michael Schumacher was leaving the harbour around the Raskas restaurant, heading in. He's just gone past our window down the pit straight, and the other guys are still around the swimming pool. So that's the kind of... We're about 4 or 5 laps, I would guess, at Michael having to start to lap people. And then shortly after that, we should see Trulli and Coulthard in the same sort of situation. That might be a chance for Coulthard and indeed for Häkkinen to do something about the Jordans in front of them if they've got the speed.
Remember that in the last Grand Prix we had the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Mika Häkkinen made that absolutely incredible start from 3rd position and went straight between his teammate David Coulthard in pole position and Michael Schumacher. Now nearly 25 seconds, with Schumacher continuing to lap at least half a second faster. He's now 21 seconds ahead of Jarno Trulli, who is going well, and he needs to go well because David Coulthard is still right behind him. Häkkinen is still pressuring Frentzen. Ralf Schumacher is still hanging on there, and we're going to be waiting and waiting to see when they first come in for pit stops.
We're talking about Trulli in a marathon. Well, they're certainly in a marathon this afternoon. We're only just over quarter distance of the race, so tough afternoon and a long, long way to go, but it's pretty much stalemate at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I've said this before, I'll say it again, 800 horsepower, these cars. The drivers have got to be, this is Jos Verstappen, followed by Pedro Diniz, followed by Jacques Villeneuve, followed by Zonta. There is Mazzacane and Genet in the 2 Minardis, and Pedro Diniz leading that lot is in 14th position. I was saying these drivers are superlatively fit, and there is absolutely, you'll know better than I do, Martin, heaven knows, but there is absolutely no respite at all at Monaco.
I think they're a bunch of wussies. We used to change gear 2,700 times around here
by
with
hand.
a stick and have blood pouring out of your hand at the end of the race. So it's made pretty easy for them in that respect, but for sure the pace is very hot.
Yeah, in those days you literally physically had to move the gear lever and coordinate the engine revs and the clutch to make sure that you didn't over-rev and blow the engine up. There is no danger of that happening now. The whole thing is controlled by electronics. The driver just pulls the paddle under the steering wheel, and everything is looked after for him.
Good grip out there at the moment. I think they've gone through that phase James was talking about where the tyres lose a bit of grip and then start coming back to the drivers as they get nearer and nearer to slick conditions. Michael Schumacher with a new fastest lap of the race. There is the Minardi.
Genet, Mark Genet.
Yeah, sensibly. If he can just let it freewheel a little bit further, he'll be well out of the racetrack there, and the marshals can quite easily recover that car through the gap in the barrier there, so it'll be covered under yellows. No safety car, no pace car needed there.
Extremely expensive jewellery shop just to the left of where he's stopped. I suppose that'll interest him very much. David Coulthard plunging down and having a look to the side of Jarno Trulli's Jordan, who calmly moves across to the right and puts any idea of David Coulthard that he might let through, which he wouldn't have done, out of his mind. And you can see that Ralf Schumacher is now in the Williams BMW 6th position, right on the tail of Mika Häkkinen's McLaren in 5th place. Here is race leader Michael Schumacher, and in the all-red look now, red Ferrari, red helmet.
The most frustrating thing about those slow corners when you're following a car very closely is the guy in front of you is guaranteed to be on the throttle a car length and a fraction ahead of you. You can't accelerate before he does, you'll run into him. So another Minardi going off at San Devot. Mazzacane, as you can see, so that'll be well and truly out of the race. Look, they've just been ripping wheels off all weekend. It's absolutely amazing how I don't know whether it's just the way they make the suspension now, but they've just been falling off so easily.
4 groove tyres, and there is Mark Genet out of the race. Now Mazzacane is out of the race, there he is. So it's an early bath for the Minardi team and their drive. So now we have got 17 cars left in the race because De La Rosa is out, Button is out, Wurtz is out, Genet is out, Mazzacane is out. 17 left, only 8 finished last year.
55 laps remaining, and I've said it before over the years, but when they hang a pit board out and you see 55 laps to go, you cannot believe that you haven't done at least half distance. It seems the early stage of this race seems so long behind the wheel, and then it somehow speeds up as you move through the afternoon.
There's 4 seconds covering second to sixth at the present moment, 23 seconds first to second. That is a mark of the skill of Michael Schumacher. I've always said that if he gets into a car that is the equal of the McLaren, which he hasn't had in the past, heaven help us, because he'll be on his way, which is... And James Allen has got news from Ferrari.
Yes, it's amazing. I'm actually up on the timing wall here at Ferrari. At Monaco, I don't stand in the garage as I come with the team up onto the wall, and I'm leaning pretty much just behind Ross Brawn's shoulder. And he said very, very little to Michael throughout this race. It really is something of a walk in the park for the German. He's now approaching the area where he's got the 26 seconds that he needs in order to make a stop and be able to rejoin ahead of the second place man. That's all he needs, with a stationary time presumed of about 8 seconds. I reckon he's going to come in sometime between that 40 and 45, and when he does, it's the same refueling team that we had at the last race at the Nürburgring. Nigel Stepney, the chief mechanic, is back here, but he's not taking part in the pit stops.
Yeah, I had a word with Nigel Stepney, the English chief mechanic of Ferrari, who took on the responsibility of handling the nozzle end of the fuel rig, a very demanding job. And he's got a bit of binding around his leg, but he's perfectly all right otherwise. He's walking well and just getting the strength back, and that's good news.
Yes, there are a lot of people in the paddock very disappointed with that situation where Michael Schumacher ran over Stepney, because there's so many of us would like to run him over, and he beat us to it. But I'm only joking, because Stepney, he can be a bit abrasive, can Nigel, but he's a good guy, does a brilliant job for the Ferrari team. But I know they've got a few people to fill in for him, and it's really nice to see him back at the races.
So Michael Schumacher is on his 26th lap, 49 laps left if my mental arithmetic is correct, and he's continuing to stride away with this race. It's not so much a question of who wins, provided Michael Schumacher keeps going to his 5th victory at Monaco to match that of the great Graham Hill, as who's going to be second, because things could very well change. Because we're getting to a situation now with Jarno Trulli, Coulthard, Frentzen, Häkkinen, Schumacher and Alesi, with only about 4 seconds between them on the track. And things are going to depend on the skill and the speed and the dexterity of their pit crews. When they come in with very hot engines, stop, up go the cars, and David Coulthard and, Mika Häkkinen having a look at Heinz-Harald Frentzen will have nothing of it. So there are the 4th, 5th and 6th men together, and Rubens Barrichello still down in that 8th place. He can't do anything about Jean Alesi. This race is going to depend in the end analysis on how good the pit crews are. I have no doubt about that at all. With 17 of the 22 starters left, that is Ralf Schumacher, and here is Frentzen, Häkkinen, Schumacher, Alesi, Barrichello in 8th position, Fisichella in 9th position. Look back, you just missed Jenny Irvine, who is still in 10th position. I say still, somehow or other, unseen by us, he's got ahead of Johnny Herbert.
Yes, Frentzen's made a slip going through Casino Square. We haven't seen it. It showed up on the computer. He's a half a second down on the first sector of this lap. So Frentzen the first to show any signs of slight cracking, but it wasn't enough of a mistake to let Häkkinen through. But Häkkinen certainly having a good look as he went into Mirabeau, wasn't it? I don't know if we'll get a replay. I don't know if the Monegasque director here will give us a replay of that, but certainly something happened to Frentzen up in Casino.
Well, we're looking now at Jacques Villeneuve in the Honda-powered BAR. He is in 15th position, pursued by his teammate Ricardo Zonta, racing at Monaco for the first time, and back again. Now, Zonta is last but one, and there you've just seen him exiting the pool, and here is Schumacher entering and now leaving it, so the gap between the first and the last on the track is getting smaller and smaller. Michael Schumacher is going to have a traffic problem soon. Are the Ferrari people going to bring him in? Well, it's lap 27 now. The earliest I would have expected him is round about lap 35. So we're going to be seeing Schumacher deal with traffic, which could give the others the opportunity to close up.
Yeah, they've got to get through too, but I think Michael's as good as any of them through the traffic, and they certainly won't be bringing him in early. There's absolutely no need. He's 26.2 seconds in the lead, but no need to change his strategy. That's absolutely for sure.
And as I was saying earlier on, getting that pole position is so important here. Schumacher got it. He got a superb start. He's had a clear track. Everybody else is fighting each other behind him. And and Heinz-Harald Frentzen is looking a bit ragged there, or was, as he came round Saint-Devote, because Mika Häkkinen is pushing extremely hard.
Yeah, Frentzen there, he must be starting to lose the rear tyres. Maybe they're going over pressure a little bit, or certainly can be going off. The rubber compound breaking down a bit, but he's now surely struggling as Johnny Herbert is in for what must be an unscheduled stop. The mechanics are not ready, and he's not on his mark, so I would imagine Johnny's got some other kind of problem than needing a new set of tyres.
I thought, and I'm going to be very careful what I say, I thought I saw a puff of smoke from the back of Herbert's car when we were looking at it earlier on, which might have been a leaking oil pipe or something more serious. But they seem to be changing the wheels and getting him out again. But anyway, he slipped right back to the rear of the field.
Yes, Barrichello and Fisichella now beginning to home in on the back of Alesi. Rubens quickest in the warm-up this morning, as I said. I think he's going to be a bit disappointed that he's not really shown. He's got clear air in front of him, but he's lapping a second a lap slower than Michael Schumacher in the sister car. So Barrichello not having a storming race.
Yeah, I think Frentzen is the man with the biggest problem at the moment. He's nearly 4 seconds behind Coulthard, who is third, as Johnny Herbert exits the pits to rejoin the race. So obviously there was not an engine problem, I hasten to say. And I say Frentzen is now 4 seconds behind Coulthard, but he's holding up Häkkinen and Schumacher and Alesi, who are all within 3 seconds.
Now Johnny's about to be lapped, so he's going to have to yield quite quickly to the ferocious pack that's behind him. Trulli and Coulthard cleared the Herbert Jaguar as he was coming out of the pits, but Frentzen, Häkkinen and co are all going to arrive, and I think Johnny will that's Wirtz recovering himself back to the paddock, but Johnny will have to be pulling over, I think, and letting that little train through.
Second and third into the tunnel, the leader out of it and into the Rascasse, coming through to complete his 29th lap out of 78 as Jarno Trulli, David Coulthard, Jordan and McLaren, second and third, come towards the Tabac. Now Frentzen fourth, Häkkinen fifth, Schumacher sixth, Alesi seventh, Barrichello eighth, Fisichella ninth. Johnny Herbert has been lapped, and the gap between Fisichella and Eddie Irvine, who is 10th, is some 6 seconds.
Yes, Johnny obviously virtually parked somewhere and led them all through, so very sensible, very mature, as you'd expect from JH. But, they're on their way, and it's just closing up all the time, isn't it? So Frentzen struggling the rear grip, as we know, and we're getting a little bit of a traffic jam there behind him. Coulthard now 5 seconds ahead of that little battle. You can see virtually the whole of the uphill section before they pop over the blind crest into Casino, where they are now. And Coulthard's going to be pretty fed up with the rear wing of that Jordan before he's finished the afternoon's event.
Yeah, but as you pointed out, Martin, there is sadly from his point of view absolutely nothing he can do about it, provided Jarno Trulli stays his ground, keeps cool, occupies the part of the track that David Coulthard would like to be in to get past him. It's the battle behind Frentzen with Häkkinen, Schumacher and Alesi that is interesting me most. We're looking at it now, and you can see that the Williams team have opted, like the rest of them, for the maximum downforce at this circuit. Downforce is everything. You've got to have grip and traction here, but Williams have gone for it a unique way by putting that high wing, and Fisichella has a look at Rubens Barrichello and fails to scramble through on the exit from the tunnel into the chicane. But nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Can you imagine being an Italian driver watching a Ferrari loom up on your nose as you're about to barge him out of the race, but the Prost going down the escape route? Is that Alesi or is that Heidfeld?
No, I think it's Alesi, in which case he's lost. There was some sort of kerfuffle between Alesi, Barrichello and Fisichella there, although Alesi was a second or so ahead of the Ferrari. But it looks to me, yes, Rubens Barrichello is ahead of Jean Alesi. He's up into 7th position. He's got 4 seconds between himself and Ralf Schumacher. And we'll soon see whether the Ferrari can make up that ground. Making up is one thing, getting past is quite another. And Mika Häkkinen is again pushing. He's just gone through the first sector.
McLarens have got a lot of speed in their pockets and they just cannot use it, which is a shame for us and a shame for the race later on. Michael Schumacher now a new fastest lap, a 1:22.948. His lead is 28 seconds plus whatever these guys do, and that's Sauber with a bent left rear. That's obviously Diniz out of the race, and that's a tricky position to recover that car from. He's obviously hit the Saint-Devote barrier. That's effectively on the racing line. I don't think there's a crane that'll reach that far, is there, Murray? He's putting a strap.
No, I don't. I was just going to say the same thing, Martin.
He's putting a strap through the rollover hoop, look. So I just wonder if they may, if the crane will reach that far, it's easy to recover that car. But I would have thought that's stretching a little bit. You've seen the crane in action down at Saint-Devote many times, and the double wave yellows there, meaning marshals on track.
I'm wondering whether they're going to bring the safety car out, because that's a very dangerous place. I don't think there's a crane that'll reach it. There is a crane at Saint-Devote, and you can see how dangerous it is for the marshals, because they come round Saint-Devote at about 70 miles an hour.
I'd rather them than me. They've got to wheel that car backwards down the hill into the range of that crane, I would guess.
Well, it hasn't made any changes to the people at the front.
Safety car standing by, it says on the computer here. Safety car standing by, which means just about nothing really, except they're obviously considering. They'll see. Now remember, we've seen the bent wheel on that Sauber. We know it may not push very well. It's got 2 punctures, I think. So its underbelly will be on the deck. That may not be such an easy car to move, although the marshals here tend to lift them up and throw a little trolley underneath. At least they've got gravity working with them to help get that Sauber of Dinitz's down the hill into the range of the crane. And meanwhile, Coulthard, as ever, pressing the back of
it's Charlie Whiting who is the race director, the English race director, who's got to make the very difficult decision about whether or not to bring out the safety car. Now, this is where it's gone off. You can see the blue flags waving there, which means that someone is behind you who wants to and is entitled to get past. But Charlie is sensibly, I think, deciding not to bring the safety car out at the present moment. That blue flag was being waved for Ricardo Zonta, who is down in 13th position. And there is...
Villeneuve being lapped. Villeneuve being lapped by Michael Schumacher, so he's coming through third distance, just about, well, over third distance actually, but look at the McLaren right up tight behind Trulli there. It's Coulthard and Trulli.
And this is where, again, we'll see the supreme ability and racecraft of Michael Schumacher, because he has this ability that Senna had. I know I'm continually making comparisons between the two of them, because they're two of the greatest, of getting through traffic where others can't.
Yes, Trulli's been very cautious around the yellow flags, and that's enabled the pack to behind them to close up by 3 or 4 seconds, and Michael Schumacher now with a 31-second lead. So Trulli has been extra cautious through those yellow flags. James, what can you tell us?
Martin, we're not a million miles away from a Michael Schumacher pit stop, I don't think. He was getting through that gaggle, which included Verstappen, Diniz, Villeneuve, Zonta and Heidfeld. He's carving through them at the moment like a hot knife through butter. Verstappen's the next one in his sights, and I would reckon they're all very close together on the road, only about 3 or 4 seconds separating the whole 5 cars. Once he's through there, that's probably a pretty good time to be thinking about making his stop, and I wouldn't be at all surprised, as you were saying before, if McLaren didn't just bring in perhaps Häkkinen at roughly the same time to try and give him some sort of opportunity to make an impression on this motor race. But Ferrari's starting to look as...
Behind him, you're looking at it now, Trulli, Coulthard, then Frentzen and Häkkinen. In 6th position is still Ralf Schumacher, no changes from the start of the race. Rubens Barrichello has moved up to 7th position as a result of Alesi going out. Fisichella's now up to 8th, Eddie Irvine to 9th, so the Jaguar is in the top 10. Michael Schumacher is not slowing at all. He's made yet another fastest lap, just 0.6 of a second off Mika Häkkinen's fastest lap time last year, a time of 1 minute 22.8. And as I said earlier on, I think he's now in a strong enough position to come in and make that stop and still get out in the lead. having taken on more fuel and fresh tyres and wheels. As we look at Johnny Herbert in the Jaguar, he's down in 15th position, he's been lapped. So have Jacques Villeneuve, who's 12th, Ricardo Zonta, who is 13th, Nick Heidfeld, who is in 14th position. And 15 are left out of the 22 who started, and there are going to be more retirements yet from this race, I forecast. Because Michael Schumacher, that you look at now, has just lapped Jos Verstappen in the arrows behind him, who is in 11th position. And he's coming up now very close to Mika Salo, I think. Yes, Mika Salo is still in 10th position in the Sauber. Eddie Irvine is on a run now. He's just gone through the first sector, fastest of all in that race. And it's heartening to realise that Jaguar are actually making progress with the car. They've got a new management structure. They've been doing an enormous amount of work on the engine with Cosworth and with the car itself. And it is starting to pay dividends. But they are very honest and say, we know we've still got a long, long way to go. And first of all, we need a wind tunnel, and that's probably a couple of years down the road. So there's a long furrow to plough, but it's nice to see them in Formula One. Michael Schumacher leading lap 36.
Yes, the Jordan and McLaren mechanics will be warming up their muscles and getting ready, because their job this afternoon is going to be, as ever these days, really absolutely critical, because if they do a good job, they can keep their man in front or leapfrog their man, whichever their car they're working on. And a half a second or a second is going to make all of the difference on the pit stop.
Now, I was talking about Eddie Irvine. He is in 9th position in the Jaguar, and he's able to make that charge, not only because the car will do it, but because there is a 4-second gap between him and Fisichella. So in comparative terms, Eddie Irvine's got a clear bit of track in front of him.
That's a slow McLaren there, Murray. I don't know, I think it's Hakkinen. It's a slow McLaren, lost a lot of speed as he's cruising through. Yes, look, Barrichello now up behind him. So Hakkinen limping. No sign of any smoke or anything like that, but clearly Hakkinen, he'll have to pull right now. He'll have to let them through in the tunnel. It's so dangerous to hold your line. He doesn't do that. And, Fisichella is going to have a face full of McLaren, but Mika staying on the inside there, and clearly some kind of major problem. But Mika Hakkinen, who was running in 5th position.
Well, Mika Hakkinen won this race in '98, and he was 2nd last year, but I can remember a lot of very unhappy Monacos for him, and it looks as though this is going to be another one. But so he's slipping down through the field. He was in 5th position. He's been passed by Ralph.
Coulthard's got a seriously good run. Oh, David, mind you don't lose your front wing and don't hit the barrier. He had to get on the brakes for a second time there, did Coulthard. That's cost him dearly. He got so close to the back of Fisichella. I assume Fisichella got out of shape in the last corner. This is Coulthard so nearly losing his wing. There was a shunt there in a Renault Clio race or something earlier on. That's what all the cement dust is down there.
Hakkinen
it's very slippery.
Sorry to interrupt you, Martin. Mika Hakkinen in the pits. You saw the tyres and wheels being replaced, but they always do that. And I'm sure he didn't come in for that reason. And there's a Jordan into slowing as well. Now, which one is it? Is it Jarno Trulli or is it Heinz-Harald Frentzen?
Trulli, it's Trulli.
It's Jarno Trulli. So this race is now on lap 37, really coming alight. Michael Schumacher out on his own, but it looks as though with Mika Hakkinen possibly out of the race, Ron Dennis in the earphones on the left is looking very concerned as he leans over the car. And there is Jarno Trulli running wide, and you see Ralf Schumacher in the Williams passing him. So Frentzen's passed him, David Coulthard's passed him. It must mean that David Coulthard in the McLaren is up into 2nd place, that Frentzen is up into 3rd place, that Ralf Schumacher is up into 4th position, that Rubens Barrichello is not just in the points, but he's in 5th position, and that Fisichella is in 6th place.
Hakkinen is leaving the pits, so whatever they were fiddling around with under the cover of the car in the footwell, they've managed to, well, maybe. Oh, and that's Schumacher in the barrier. That was Schumacher. I thought I could hear something funny from Hakkinen's car. It was Ralf Schumacher clattering the barrier, and yet again, a wheel just relatively easily falling off the car. Here he comes, look, he's been slightly unsighted really by Mika coming out of the pit lane. Not Mika's fault at all, just gone too deep into Saint-Devote, and as soon as you get up in the grey there, you're going straight into the tyre barrier. So now you're looking at 2nd place man Coulthard, And third place man, Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Now we'll see what kind of pace Coulthard has got.
In comes Jarno Trulli. We saw him touring, and the race which looked so good for Jordan is suddenly looking not good at all. That is Ralf Schumacher in the background, just yards away from where he lives, removing his helmet as Jarno Trulli's Jordan is wheeled away. Now we're on lap 39, and here is the totally changed race situation, except for the fact that Michael Schumacher is leading it. He's 37 seconds ahead of David Coulthard, who has got Heinz-Harald Frentzen about a second behind him in third place. Fourth was Ralf Schumacher, but it's now Rubens Barrichello. So 2 Ferraris in the top 4, looking very good for Constructors' Championship points. And David Coulthard is now the fastest man on the track.
Yeah, we were right about that. He's just in 22.3. That's 6 tenths faster than Michael Schumacher's best lap so far this afternoon. And that's the first time he's been released, basically, with some clear track ahead of him. You know, whack it in the barriers, David, because you're 36 seconds behind. It's going to be so difficult to put Schumacher on any kind of under any kind of pressure from so far behind. But he's got to do it. He's got to keep going, and it's probably easy to keep your concentration in that situation. But Coulthard now absolutely on a charge.
Yeah, and David has taken so much stick in recent times in comparison with Mika Häkkinen, which I never thought was justified. He's about 38 Grand Prix less experience than the Finn, and that is over 2 years. And David always says, I'm still comparatively young, I've got a lot of experience now, I've got a lot to come, and I believe I can win the World Championship. I believe he can too. But Michael Schumacher, that we are looking at now, is on his 40th lap. He's still got to come in. No one has come in amongst the leaders for a fueling stop. We've had Mika Häkkinen in with a problem, we've had Johnny Herbert in, we've had Jarno Trulli come in to retire, and there are now just 14 people left of the 22 who started.
Something flicked out of the back of the Ferrari, but I would assume it's just debris that Michael Schumacher ran over as Coulthard does another new fastest lap of the race, some 1.8 seconds faster than Michael Schumacher, and the gap's beginning to come down, but it's still some 34 seconds.
And the thing that they all have to watch out for now, and we have to watch out for, is very quick news from James Allen.
Yeah, very quickly. That's certainly added an edge to the afternoon for as far as Ferrari are concerned. They're certainly sitting up and paying attention now. And as I say, Schumacher not a million miles away from the stop. Some speculation just for you on the Häkkinen situation. We saw him lifting the top of the bodywork off when he came in. They seem to be looking at the brakes, particularly at the brake pedal, to see maybe there's some sort of problem with that.
Thanks, James. Well, I was saying that what they need to look out for now is debris on the track, because that debris will be carbon fibre. It breaks with a razor edge, and you've only got to get a little bit of it in a tyre carcass, and it can slice it and cause a puncture. So Michael Schumacher leading. There is David Coulthard, who's reduced the gap to 34 seconds. He's lapping now a second faster than Michael Schumacher, who has got this enormous cushion of 30 seconds. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen is dropping back in third position, with Rubens Barrichello in fourth place, catching the Jordan. It's all coming alight now, and Fisichella is in fifth position in the Benetton. He's lapping slower than Barrichello. Eddie Irvine is now in the points. I say that again, Eddie Irvine's Jaguar is in the points. His teammate Johnny Herbert is down in 13th position, having been lapped. And I know everybody in Britain and in many places all around the world who are Jaguar enthusiasts want to see the Leaping Cat do as well in Formula One as it did in World Sports Car Racing, and we'll be hoping that Eddie Irvine can stay there to get a first World Championship point for Jordan, and the first for himself this year.
Don't be confused by Häkkinen there, back in more or less the pack he was running in. He's now a lap down after that lengthy stop, so Häkkinen more or less, as I say, rejoining in his original position, but one lap down.
Yeah, and going extremely quickly. There's obviously nothing wrong mechanically with the car at the moment that affects his performance, because he's just gone through the first sector of the lap faster than anyone has been in the race. And Ralf Schumacher, whose face we saw contorted with pain when he took his helmet off, seems to have hurt his leg. He was limping as he went over the wall there, and when he subsequently took his helmet off, I could see that he was grimacing in pain.
Yes, what that's going to be, he's calling the marshal's overlook, so I've got a problem here. What's that going to be is a piece of wishbones come into the monocoque, burst through the monocoque as the car hit the wall, and has pierced at least pierced the skin on his leg. Obviously hasn't broken his bone, otherwise he wouldn't be leaping over the barrier.
And that despondent face you saw was of the most experienced Grand Prix driver currently of them all, Jean Alesi, who loves Monaco, who adores the challenges that it gives a driver and responds to them so well, and was in 7th position, but is now one of the 7 retirements.
New fastest lap of the race for Mika Häkkinen, now running in clear air, but he's too far adrift to do anything with it. He may still get some points. It's that kind of afternoon. And Michael Schumacher has had to seriously pick up his pace. Now he's got the news that Coulthard's been released, and off he goes. That's Irvine in for it's Herbert, sorry, it's Herbert in for his 2nd stop of the afternoon, and he looks like he's still got problems, doesn't he? He's a very, very slow stop again there, 9.4. Actually, not too bad there for Johnny.
See the light flashing. The rear light has to flash, and the fuel filler cap has to stay up with the electronics to indicate that they are not organised in such a way that they can give you traction control.
Curious Johnny had to come in again, because obviously he had the unscheduled stop where you'd think they would have tanked it up. Maybe they didn't get fuel in when he came in last time around. Coulthard, a new fastest lap of the race now, a 1:22.1, but Michael Schumacher's down there on a 22.2, so Schumi really has picked his pace up. Coulthard has now dropped Frentzen by a full 7 seconds.
Now, the prophecy that we were making about it being a long time before anybody in this race amongst the leaders came in for a fuel stop has proved to be correct, because none of the first 10 have yet been in as the Ferrari surges past the arrows and down towards the hairpin. Michael Schumacher's on his 43rd lap now and has yet to come in. He came in on lap 42 last year, actually, but he's obviously staying out longer. He's 33 seconds ahead of Coulthard, a superb cushion. He's very comfortable indeed, provided he can keep running, even though Coulthard is marginally quicker than he is at the moment. That's Jos Verstappen, who's in 11th place. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is 3rd, but cannot cope with the now much faster David Coulthard, who has been released to go as quickly as he can. Rubens Barrichello, 4th position in the Ferrari, is catching Frentzen at the rate of about half a second a lap. 5th is Fisichella, 6th is Eddie Irvine still, and he's catching Fisichella's Benetton. 7th is Mika Salo, and just to complete the remaining runners, Villeneuve is 8th, Zonta is 9th, Heidfeld is 10th, Mika Häkkinen is 11th and has been lapped, Jos Verstappen is 12th, Johnny Herbert is in 13th position, all the rest have retired.
As Johnny is now 2 laps down, unfortunately, after his 2 pit stops. You're watching David Coulthard in 2nd place, now 7.6 seconds clear of Frentzen, but that time around Schumacher pegged him. They were just about identical in the low 1:22, so Schumacher's now responded and pegged Coulthard to a 33.5 second lead.
The danger, as you've heard from us, we're riding with Coulthard now through the chicane down towards the Tabac.
Yeah, the track gets fantastic grip in the second half of the race. You can see the tyre rubber that goes down, and you just get this wonderful traction, and the car really feels good. The track comes to you as the race goes on, and you really can't believe how easy it is to do 121s, 122s, when earlier on in the weekend a 26 or a 27 was frightening you silly, and the track just picks up so much grip.
Yeah, now David Coulthard obviously wants to win this race, of course, but he won't be too unhappy with 2nd position. If he stays there, it will give him 6 World Championship points, which will move him ahead of Mika Häkkinen to 2nd in the World Championship, behind Michael Schumacher, who will dramatically have extended his lead.
Yes, it looks pretty calm behind the wheel of Coulthard's McLaren there, but he did a new fastest lap of the race. You can now see for yourself a 1:21.9 and took 9/10 out of Schumacher's lead. So if he can carry that kind of pace, he can certainly keep Schumacher honest for the rest of the afternoon, Murray.
Yeah, and just as Michael Schumacher is looking like extending his World Championship lead, the same thing applies to Ferrari, who won the Constructors' Championship last year, are leading it this year by 10 points, but they've got both their drivers in the top 4. So that's 13 points potentially at the moment. 10 for Michael Schumacher, 3 for Rubens Barrichello, whereas McLaren have only got this man, David Coulthard, on a potential 6 World Championship points. So it's looking very, very strong, very good indeed for Ferrari, who've got so many Italian Tifosi fans here.
Michael Schumacher responding again. He also now in the 121.9s, as you saw on your screen. So,
and that is a faster lap than Mika Häkkinen last year. So as the fuel load is coming down and Michael Schumacher's concentration is maintained, if not intensified, he goes 4/10 of a second faster, and David Coulthard is faster again. He's just taken 2/10 of a second out of Michael Schumacher's lead, but since that lead is 32 seconds, nearly 33 seconds, Schumacher's very strong indeed. Verstappen again running across the chicane as we look at Ricardo Zonta now, chased by Nick Heidfeldt's Prost. Heidfeldt is in 10th position, looking for 9th position. Ricardo Zonta's first race here at Monaco, and David Coulthard continues to push on lap 46. 78 lap race, 32 still to go. As you say, Martin, if you're a driver, it must seem like going on forever.
Yes, it's such a shame. Coulthard's got a couple of cars to clear here, but it's such a shame he didn't get around truly earlier on, because I think we could have seen a great duel this afternoon between Schumacher and Coulthard. They're matching each other virtually identically. This lap's going to cost Coulthard some time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The blue flags are being waved for car number 15. Look, it's so slow around Raskas. And they both go into pits. That'll be a sigh of relief for Coulthard.
Yeah, he's lost time, but not nearly as much as he would have done if they'd kept going, because Heidfeldt was intent on getting past Zonta, and Zonta was intent on stopping him. They come in absolutely together now.
Yeah, it cost Coulthard 1.7 seconds that lap, so Schumacher now 34 seconds ahead again.
And we're on lap 47 as Heidfeldt gets away now. Is he going to stay in the same relative position against Ricardo Zonta? No, Zonta's away first. Heidfeldt gets through. So a very good stop by both teams. A better one by... Whoa, and that was where we've had the 2 offs already today. It's very sandy. It's probably oily underneath. There is Eddie Irvine coming towards us in the Jaguar in 6th position. He has now lapped Jos Verstappen's arrows as they go into Massenet and Casino Square together. Irvine is holding his position. He's 22 seconds ahead of the first man on the track who is not in the points, and that is Mika Salo. So, fingers crossed everywhere for Jaguar lovers, because Eddie Irvine is still there, still in the points as this race starts to run its course, with Michael Schumacher still to come in on lap 48 out of 78, 30 laps to go.
I think they're still working on Ralf Schumacher there with his cut leg, so they're stretching him away. Obviously quite a nasty cut there for Ralf.
And Formula One being what it is, motor racing being what it is, I can imagine there are probably people on the phone already to Frank Williams saying if Ralf Schumacher can't take part in the next race, which is the Canadian Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time, and he's not looking too good there at the moment, I would be very happy to take his place. So fingers crossed too for Ralf Schumacher.
Yeah, familiar sight, isn't it? Unfortunately, a Schumacher being stretchered off, looking somewhat in pain with his leg. Obviously, brother Michael had that last year. I would have thought it was much more severe for Michael last year because Ralf was able to hobble over the wall. But still, nonetheless, must be pretty nasty cut for them to have to take such dramatic action.
So we're looking at Rubens Barrichello now in the Ferrari, chasing Mika Häkkinen's McLaren. Now we're with David Coulthard, 2nd position, 34 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. No sign yet of the Ferrari coming in. We can't see the pit lane very clearly from here. There's an enormous amount of pit furniture, but there are the Ferrari mechanics as I speak, waiting to bring somebody in. Now I think it must be Michael Schumacher, because there's no need to bring Barrichello in for traffic reasons. He's 2 seconds behind, 2.3 seconds behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Yes, getting the news that we think it is Schumacher. Barrichello's tucked up behind Häkkinen, who he's trying to lap. So Barrichello has got a little bit of a traffic problem, but nonetheless, we think it'll be Schumacher they'll bring in first.
With a 33-second lead over the man you are watching now, David Coulthard from Twynham, Scotland. Here is Michael Schumacher. He's in the swimming pool section, in past the diver statue, round the left-hander, keeps bearing left, brakes hard on for the Ras Kass, which is about a 30-mile-an-hour corner. The mechanics are ready, the Ferrari mechanics are ready. Are you there, James? No, he's not. James?
Yeah, I'm here, Murray, and there's some scrub tyres going on for Michael Schumacher, and 52 kilos of fuel. Should take about 8.5 seconds stationary time in total. They're not rushing. A great stop by Ferrari. They've got it all perfectly right today.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher exits the pit lane at that mandatory 60 kilometres an hour. He's got the new style pit lane speed limiter working, and David Coulthard has not come through as I predicted. There is David Coulthard coming round into the so-called start and finish straight, which is actually a curve, and he's still in second place, but Michael Schumacher has retained his lead from some 33 seconds to some 11 seconds. So he's lost about 22 seconds as a result of coming in, slowing, stationary for just 7.7 seconds as they put in the fuel. And he's got new tyres on now, and his concentration will not be affected. He can see a 5th Monaco Grand Prix victory in sight now, provided he just keeps going, because David Coulthard has still got to stop. He is 13, 14 seconds ahead of Frentzen, who's got Barrichello right behind him, and in the barrier there, I can't see whether it's Zonta or Villeneuve. It's Zonta. Ricardo Zonta has gone off at the same place as the others. It's obviously very slippery there. He's gone into the barrier on the left at Saint-Devote. There he is away from the car, passing the broken Minardi. Well, he was in 10th position, so there are only 12 runners left now, with some 28 laps still to go. Now, last year, I've said it, but I'll repeat it, that only 8 cars finished. Retirements that we've had in order of retirement. De La Rosa really didn't start the race. There is Zonta's car being craned away.
I used to hate driving underneath that. You're putting so much faith in somebody else. Having tied that car up properly, and so often on a street circuit you drive underneath a craned car. Louise, what can you tell us?
Well, the driver's taking quite some time to make their way across the system of walkways and bridges back to the paddock, but Jenson Button is finally back here. Jenson, looked like some kind of mechanical problem with the car.
Yeah, we had I'm not quite sure what the problem is exactly. They're looking into it, but the last 4 laps I had a few problems on acceleration. When I went on the accelerator, the engine just died, so or something just died, so we're not sure what the problem is, but it's the end of my race.
Bit of a frustrating day all round, really.
Yeah, I think the only good thing I've got out of it is a bit of exercise, running back to the pits, but there you go. I think it's my first experience of Monaco, and hopefully the rest will be better.
I know you're desperate for a drink. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
As Eddie Irvine exits the pit lane, he came in 6th position, and Mika Salo has just gone through as I speak. So you just saw a flash of the Sauber going past there. So Mika Salo in the Sauber is up into the points. He's been there once already this season at the San Marino Grand Prix, but this is the battle on the circuit. It is Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 3rd position in the yellow Jordan, pursued by Rubens Barrichello, who is looking to get onto the podium to make it not 1 but 2 Ferrari drivers up there. And Barrichello urgently needs those points to improve his World Championship point position. He's in 4th position in the championship at the moment, and he is lapping about 0.4 of a second faster, with Mika Häkkinen in the background. But he's been lapped, don't forget.
There's Michael not particularly fast since he put new tyres on and fuel on board to go through to the end of the 78 lapper. We're on lap 52, but he was 1.3 seconds slower. There's Fisichella makes his first and probably only stop of the afternoon from 5th place. Look at the brake dust as the air guns, the pressurized compressed air guns just disperse the whole lot of it, and Fisichella back out at 60 k's as ever. It's special. The drivers ask for this place to be slower than anywhere else because it is so dangerous, and nobody's disadvantaged that way.
So, lap 52, Michael Schumacher leads and has stopped. David Coulthard second and has not stopped. Frentzen and Barrichello that you are looking at having a big battle for third position, for the second podium position. And behind them is Fisichella, who you've just seen come in from his pit stop. Mika Salo is up into the points as a result of Eddie Irvine stopping. But I think Irvine will retake that position, provided the Jaguar keeps going as well as it has been doing, when Mika Salo himself comes in. 12 runners left. One of them is still Johnny Herbert, who has been lapped twice. Everybody up to 7th position, that is Eddie Irvine, has been lapped as coming towards us up the hill. Heinz Harald Frentzen 3rd, Rubens Barrichello 4th. Off goes a tear-off visor strip from Heinz Harald Frentzen's helmet. He's obviously got it fogged up or perhaps some oil on it. And Rubens Barrichello really pushing with Louise Goodman, with Jarno Trulli.
That's right, Murray. The retirees arriving back thick and fast now. Jarno, I understand it was a mechanical problem with the car. Gearbox, is that right?
Yes, it's right. We don't know if it's a mechanical or electronic problem, but it's a gearbox.
Such a disappointment for you.
Yeah, it's right, for me and also for the team. I mean, the second position was pretty easy to keep because luckily my car was perfect. I didn't push very much because I was on one stop, very long first thing, so I was taking care of the tires and tried to keep away David. And as soon as David was closing the gap, I was pushing away, pulling away easily.
Bad lad.
Yeah, interesting there. He says he was on a very long first stint. Presumably that's Barrichello's stop for Ferrari. Mechanics are getting ready for. So I'm sure that tells us something about Frentzen too, and that he is going to be on a long stint. But no, Frentzen coming in the pits. Jordan have either decided to do that or responded to the Ferrari mechanics coming out into the pit lane to make sure they can try and keep their man with track position.
Now, can Rubens Barrichello, as a result of help from the Ferrari mechanics, get his place ahead of...
Oh.
Yeah, no! Frentzen gets out ahead in the pit lane, ahead of Rubens Barrichello, so there is no change in terms of track position. The question is, has Fisichella has not gone through. Is that the Benetton? No, it's not. It was the Jaguar coming through. The Jaguar of Johnny Herbert, who has now unlapped himself from those two, but not from race leader Michael Schumacher. Lap 53 then.
Now, Barrichello knows this is his best chance to leapfrog that Jordan while they're on cold tires, while there's a certain amount of unknown, and he's just not close enough to have a look up the inside into Mirabeau. Frentzen's a pretty wise hand as well, but this is surely his best chance to catch Frentzen unawares somewhere.
Well, Barrichello's had a second this year, he's had a third this year, and Heinz Harald Frentzen has just had a third place, so they'll both be pretty anxious to have that position. And David Coulthard is now really pushing, but he's still got to come in. He's done the fastest lap of the race, a second quicker than Michael Schumacher, but don't forget that Schumacher on his 55th lap has had his sole stop. David Coulthard, who is 4 seconds behind him now, has still got to come in. He's the only one of the top 7 who has not yet stopped.
Yes, Coulthard must now have, we're not seeing it, but he must now have Schumacher in sight. But as you rightly say, he's a full pit stop behind. We know that to be about 22 seconds. Coulthard's stop should be shorter than anybody's because he's going the furthest, so he needs less fuel to get to the end of the race. But certainly, as the tread has gone off the tyres and the fuel load is down, Coulthard's got a very fast motor car underneath him.
Now, the only real race in terms of position at the present moment is that between Frentzen and Barrichello that we've been looking at, who came into the pits together and left together, because Schumacher is effectively a long way ahead of David Coulthard. You can see them virtually together on the track now as Coulthard's second comes into the Rascasse, which Michael Schumacher has just exited. But I say again, there is a... And Schumacher's in trouble! Schumacher's in trouble! Front wheel off the ground! Has he got a puncture? Michael, and it's happened at the very worst place that it could possibly happen, because he's only just past the pits. He's got to do a whole lap like this. Now, you remember what I said earlier on about carbon fibre stuff getting into the tyres? Maybe that's happened.
No, I don't think he's got a puncture. I think he's got a... Well, we'll have to wait and see, but I thought it looked more like a suspension failure than a puncture. I think he's got a suspension failure there, Murray. He's going to be out of the race with that one.
Yes, indeed he is, and in which case David Coulthard will take the lead with Frentzen in second position and Barrichello in third. But first, we've got to see what happens in this really dramatic development to Michael Schumacher, who's on his 56th lap. I say it's happened at the very worst place, because even if it's a puncture, which is the least of his problems, he's still got to do a whole lap, probably with the back of his car dragging on the ground by the time he gets in. If it's a broken suspension, he will be out of the Monaco Grand Prix.
Well, I'm hearing from the pits they're getting a suspension arm ready to go on to Schumacher's car, but that's going to take some time.
Look at this.
Yeah, I mean, he held it well. I think he's got a left rear suspension failure. That puts the right front up in the air like that. I don't think he had a flat tyre, and I'm almost certain that Schumi's got a damaged rear suspension, so that's going to take them 3 or 4 minutes, I would have thought. And now they've chosen to make Coulthard stop at that point.
Lovely bit of quick thinking by the McLaren team. Will bring David in for his sole pit stop. He was 43 seconds ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, so there's going to be no problem in terms of David Coulthard losing what looks like is going very shortly to be the lead of the Monaco Grand Prix, with Heinz-Harald Frentzen moving up into second position, and we're looking at the Jordan now. Where is Rubens Barrichello?
Here's Michael still trying to recover to the pits, look, and I'm pretty sure there's something gone on the pull rod or the rear shock absorber mechanism on Michael Schumacher's car. So maybe he had a little thump of the barrier somewhere earlier on in the race, and that can so often catch you out later on. So Michael Schumacher, they're still limping back to the pits. In
fourth position, he's been passed by Coulthard, he's been passed by Frentzen, he's been passed by his teammate Rubens Barrichello. The glittering prospect of a fifth victory here at Monaco has escaped him. James.
You can never count on anything in Formula One racing. As he came in, the left rear wheel was bubbling. He's cut the engine, guys. So I think he thinks it's all over. This reminds me very much of 1998. You remember he clashed with Alexander Wurz at the Lowe's hairpin and threw away a certain 10 points and victory because he damaged his left rear suspension in that incident. Mechanics furiously working in the back, but the engine is cut out, and certainly any chance of any significant points are gone for Michael Schumacher.
Thank you, James. So let's assume that is the situation, and obviously the cameras and we will be keeping you in touch. But now on lap 57 with 21 to go, as the Ferrari mechanics wrestle frantically with that rear suspension problem, David Coulthard is in the lead, the man who won the British Grand Prix, the man who's had such a terrible season personally as a result of that appalling air crash, is in the lead at Monaco, 24 seconds ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and there is Frentzen pursued by Rubens Barrichello. So this is the battle for second position that you are looking at. A McLaren leads, a Jordan is second, a Ferrari is third. In fourth place, the Benetton of Fisichella. In fifth position, it's Eddie Irvine's Jaguar. And in sixth position is Mika Salo in the Sauber. Seventh is Mika Hakkinen, and he is...
that's the Ferrari still in the pits. Michael Schumacher getting out of the car, I think, Murray. They're abandoning the race. The Ferrari is retiring from the race.
Well, bitter goal for Michael Schumacher after having driven such a brilliant Monaco. Firstly, to take pole position. Secondly, to retain the lead at the first corner on the third attempt at starting the race after two aborted starts. Is out of the Monaco Grand Prix. His 10 World Championship points possibility has disappeared. Mika Hakkinen, however, is out of the points at the present moment. David Coulthard is potentially on 10 World Championship points, and if he gets those, he would be within 12 points of Michael Schumacher. All is not lost. And the top six at the present moment are Coulthard, Frentzen, Barrichello, Fisichella, Irvine and Salo. Well, new race leader on lap 59 out of 78, and we're riding with him now into the Portier and then into the tunnel at Monte Carlo, underneath the Grand Hotel. The kitchens are above, and it was the kitchens where a frying pan fire happened in the past, as a result of which the fire extinguishers went off, as a result of which part of the tunnel was flooded. So David Coulthard leading on lap 59, coming up to the swimming pool section, right again, left out of it, then down to the Rascasse on his 59th lap, knowing that with a 19-second lead over Heinz Harald Frenzen's Jordan, he's basically just got to keep it going to win his second Grand Prix of the year and close up on Michael Schumacher. But that's what I was saying about Michael Schumacher not so long ago. He's just got to keep it going, and he didn't.
Yes, I don't think Coulthard's going to have that luxury of cruising to the end, because Frentzen is obviously being pursued strongly by Barrichello, so there's a lot of pace there in second and third place, and they're certainly not going to give Coulthard the luxury of swanning around to the end.
No, but he's got an 17-second lead now, because Frenzen's just gone round 7/10 of a second faster than David Coulthard, as the result of the pressure that he's getting from Rubens Barrichello that you're looking at now. Fisichella is 7 seconds behind Barrichello in 4th place. Eddie Irvine still looking good for a Jaguar finish in the points for the first time this year. Michael Schumacher, sadly and despondently, out of the race. As usual, the Monaco Grand Prix has not disappointed us. It seemed static for such a long time, but as in the past, everything changed very quickly indeed. This is lap 60. You're looking at the battle between Heinz Harald Frentzen in the yellow Jordan and Rubens Barrichello, or you were, in the scarlet Ferrari for second place. And David Coulthard, that we're riding with now up the hill and into Massenet and Casino Square, is 17 seconds ahead of that battle with Frentzen in second place. But that gap is coming down very slightly indeed. I think Coulthard has responded, because his last lap time was actually 1/10 of a second faster than that of Frentzen. Fisichella is in 4th place, so it's McLaren, Jordan, Ferrari, Benetton. Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar is still looking good for a points position. He's in 5th place, 18 seconds ahead of Mika Salo Sauber.
That's Coulthard getting very close to the wall there as he came out of Portier and then out braking himself into the chicane. So Coulthard still pushing. James, what can you tell us?
Well, it's certainly holding up at the front. Michael Schumacher reasonably philosophical from the look of the way he was when he took his helmet off. I can tell you that was the left rear suspension that broke, but the word at Ferrari is that he did not hit the barriers. That's the way they are saying it at the moment. He did not hit the barriers, so they're not quite sure why it broke.
Maybe it was because it wasn't strong enough, which seems reasonable enough. He certainly didn't hit the barrier that we saw.
It's not to say he didn't hit the barrier some other time in the weekend. We did see him wallop it in qualifying yesterday with the left rear. They crack test these parts. I'd be surprised if they weren't new suspension parts, but it's very unusual to have a failure like that. But this is a tough racetrack, a lot of bumps, a lot of you do get very close to the barrier sometimes without actually knowing you've touched it. Michael didn't realise he'd hit the barrier in qualifying. It was just such a gentle touch, but it still puts a lot of side load in. Hakkinen is on a charge. He's trying to catch his fellow Finn, Mika Salo, who's occupying 6th place at the moment and a World Championship point. And Hakkinen needs that. Michael Schumacher out of the race. Hakkinen needs to maximise, as does Coulthard up there, currently on 10 points, but he doesn't need too many scrappy laps like he had last time around.
There is Mika Salo that we're looking at now in the Sauber. He's in 6th position. You just saw a flash of Mika Hakkinen, who's really responded, as he always does, to a challenge. That is Eddie Irvine going through in the Jaguar. He's 25 seconds behind Fisichella in 5th position, Irvine. But Salo has got Mika Hakkinen getting closer and closer to him. Hakkinen is lapping a full second a lap faster than Mika Salo. He's only 5 seconds behind. We're on lap 62 out of 78. So Mika Hakkinen is certainly in a very strong position to get one World Championship point. I can't see him then catching Eddie Irvine unless the Jaguar man is very unlucky indeed, because Eddie Irvine that we're looking at now is some 18 seconds ahead of Mika Salo, who has yet to be caught and passed by Mika Häkkinen. David Coulthard, meantime, is on his 63rd lap, and he's maintaining the gap between himself and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. We're looking at Coulthard now at some 17 seconds. Yes, I apologise. That's Mika Häkkinen trying to close. Well, he is closing up on Mika Salo. And out of the race goes Jos Verstappen. Now, that's the swimming pool section. And there's no crane there, I can tell you that. So somehow or other they've got to get that car off the racing line and across the track and push it back towards the Tabac.
Safety car on standby again. So safety car is on standby. Doesn't mean to say they're necessarily going to use it as earlier in the race. And well, we've seen two arrows in that wall in exactly the same situation today, haven't we? And he managed then to come to the inside rather than De La Rosa stuffed one there this morning. And
Mark Webber stuck one there in the 3000 race.
Yes, it's the same colour scheme. You're absolutely right. There's a magnet in there for anything painted orange and black this weekend. But they've moved that car, the crowd applauding, and that's really on the inside there. But it's still, if you had a big slide coming out of Tabac, you'd still manage to run into it. So what are they going to do?
They can't lift it off because the crane won't reach that far, I'm pretty sure. So they're either going to have to rely on the drivers remembering where it is after they passed it the first time, or they're going to have to bring out wave yellows, which prevents any passing in that sector. I should think it will probably be the latter, as now we're on lap 64, 14 to go. David Coulthard looking good. Frentzen not necessarily looking good for second position. If Barrichello can do anything about it, he can catch him, but he can't get past him, I think. Fisichella, meantime, is lapping faster in fourth position than either Frentzen or Barrichello ahead of him, and he's only 5 seconds behind Ruben Barrichello's Ferrari. Eddie Irvine out on his own, Mika Salo out on his own, except that he's now got Mika Häkkinen getting closer and closer. There is the proof. Mika Salo in the dark blue Sauber into the Rascasse as Mika Häkkinen gobbles up the gap between him. And if he gets past, or rather when he gets past the Sauber, Mika Häkkinen is going to be in the points again.
Absolutely no love lost at all between these fellow Finns. Salo will want that point, he'll fight for it, but Häkkinen surely has the much faster car.
Yeah, he has, but then someone's got to make the decision about whether to show Mika Salo the blue flags, because if he can maintain his car in a position where Mika Häkkinen can't get past, the law will be with him.
Yes, they can't.
3 championship years ago, and they've still carried that enmity forward. So Mika Salo, Sauber, wanting a World Championship point to add to the one that he has already this year as a result of his 6th position in the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. And Mika Häkkinen wanting that point so that he can get a bit closer to Michael Schumacher. I don't suppose Mika Häkkinen knows that Schumacher's out of the race, but he will be after every point that he can get.
Fascinating to know what happened with Häkkinen's car earlier in the race when he was so slow coming back to the pits. Whatever it was, they fixed it in the pit stop, which is most unusual to have to be so slow and then suddenly be so fast. But steady situation in the race at the moment. Häkkinen homing in on Salo for that final point at the moment.
Track temperature down a bit, but the race temperature is very much up as far as 6th position is concerned, because you're looking at the battle now. Salo from Finland versus Häkkinen from Finland. Salo in the Sauber, Häkkinen in the McLaren. Häkkinen in a car that is much, much faster, given the opportunity, than Salo's Sauber. But we've already seen here how difficult it is to get past. And if Salo just stays cool, and the Finn is by no means inexperienced, it's his 82nd Grand Prix, and he's driven for Tyrrell. He drove for last year for Ferrari, if you remember, and very nearly won the German Grand Prix. In fact, he moved over and ceded it to Eddie Irvine, his teammate, led Irvine through for the maximum points in the World Championship. So Salo is no slouch. Now, his car hasn't got the performance, although ironically it's got a Ferrari engine, last year's Ferrari engine. You're looking at what are called the marbles, which are bits of grained rubber off the tyres lying on the track, and if you get on those, they are very, very slippery indeed. This is lap 67 at Monaco. There are 11 laps left, and David Coulthard is continuing to hold his lead, but it's now 16.5 seconds ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who's lapping marginally quicker than the McLaren, but not quickly enough to be able to catch him and let alone get past him. Barrichello is still third, just behind Frentzen, but 4 seconds now behind him. It looks as though Barrichello is not able to close the gap. Fisichella is fourth, Irvine is fifth, and you're looking at the battle for sixth. Lap 67 out of 78 at Monaco. Race leader David Coulthard is being caught by Frentzen, but not nearly quickly enough for Frentzen. He's still 16 seconds ahead. This is the race on the track. It's the battle for sixth position between Finland's Mika Salo and Finland's Mika Häkkinen, respectively, in the Sauber and McLaren cars, who are being caught, as you can see, by David Coulthard. So Coulthard is coming up to lap his teammate, Mika Häkkinen. Now, Coulthard's last lap was 1 minute 21.8. Mika Häkkinen's last lap was 1 minute 23.7. So Coulthard is lapping nearly 2 seconds a lap faster than Mika Häkkinen, who's going to be faced with a dilemma very shortly. Can he get past Salo without holding his teammate up, or should he let Coulthard through?
Yeah, Coulthard doesn't need to be in the 1 minute 21s to win this race. Mid-22s, late 22s would be absolutely fine. But, I mean, that's just a few tenths off of the fastest lap of the race so far. So, Coulthard on a mission. Louise, what can you tell us?
I'm standing by here with Michael Schumacher. Michael, any idea what caused that failure?
Yeah, we had an exhaust failure. One of the pipe broke and basically cooked the suspension.
It was such a crashing victory. It was on the cards.
Yeah, but you know, that's Formula One.
I know you were anxious to find out news about your brother Ralph. Any news on his injuries?
Yeah, apparently he has quite a deep cut into his leg, but nothing more than that. He has to have stitches, but no broken or no further problems. So quite lucky.
Thank you, Louise, and thank you, Michael Schumacher. Good to know that Ralph's injuries are nothing worse than a cut, although I wonder whether that will have healed enough for the Canadian Grand Prix at Montreal in 2 weeks' time. We have to go there a bit earlier, it being a long-haul event than we normally do. But David Coulthard's lead is still being whittled away very, very, very slowly, too slowly for Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Coulthard is on his 69th lap now, and Mika Häkkinen, as he disappears into the tunnel on the tail of Mika Salo's Sauber, still pressures his countryman, but still can't get past him. As we look at Eddie Irvine, still in that fifth position for Jaguar, still potentially on Jaguar's first World Championship points. I think that's his teammate Johnny Herbert in front of him in 10th position. So both the Jaguars are running reliably, and one of them is in the points, potentially to get their first World Championship points of their first Grand Prix season. Salo, Häkkinen, at and out of the Rascasse, through to complete their 69th lap, and they, just as a matter of interest, are 74 seconds ahead of David Coulthard, the race leader, who's going to be on both of them pretty shortly. Now look back and you may see, yes, there is David Coulthard. You can see the track gap there is between Mika Häkkinen in 7th place and his teammate David Coulthard, who is leading the race and is very nearly a full lap ahead of Salo and Häkkinen. But as Martin has rightly said, David Coulthard can afford to ease off quite a lot without being in danger of losing his lead, because it is now 17 seconds Frentzen is lapping marginally quicker than he is, but what would then matter is the time that Carlo is lapping in comparison with Coulthard, and it's about 2 seconds a lap slower. So David Coulthard could still go on for 8 laps at a reduced speed and win the race, and I reckon that's what he's going to do.
I think they're showing us Fisichella because he's beginning to close in quite quickly now on Barrichello, certainly on the last lap by over 1.3 seconds. So Fisichella now trying to make a play for the final seat on the podium. Villeneuve in the BAR Honda. It's going to be significant if he gets lapped by Frentzen, basically the second Honda team lapping the Works Honda team, and that will not go down at all well.
Yes, Jordan are making the official Honda team look pretty shabby at the present moment, and here is the race order on lap 71 as you look at Rubens Barrichello in 3rd position, and now Frentzen, who is in 2nd place, 16.8 seconds behind race leader David Coulthard, and 4 seconds ahead of 4th place Carlo Fisichella in the Benetton. Eddie Irvine, and there goes the Jordan, and Frentzen is now going to be passed by Rubens Barrichello, who will move up into 2nd position.
Just a silly, careless mistake there, Murray. Frentzen just went in, cruised into the corner, ran fractionally wide and slapped the barrier. Surely he's broken the rear suspension and the drive shaft, I'd imagine. Look at this, look, just picks up a little bit of dirt, and that's it. And quite a whack, actually. Barrier yielded a little bit, and that is Frentzen out of the race. What a silly, careless mistake.
So it means that a Ferrari is now on 6 World Championship points, and you are looking at it. This has eased the bitter blow for Ferrari and made things tougher for McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, because Coulthard is on 10 points, Barrichello is on 6. Up into 3rd position goes Fisichella in the Benetton. Up into 4th place goes the Jaguar of Eddie Irvine. 5th is Carlo. Mika Häkkinen is now in the points. Both the McLarens are in the points, 1st and 6th.
I think that Jordan will be manoeuvrable, and they've got to pull it out of the way. I don't know which way they'll take it, but the Jordan at least appeared to have its wheels pointing more in the right direction than Denitz's car earlier on in the race. And the man who now needs to put a spurt on is Fisichella there in the blue Benetton, because he's now got a chance of 2nd place. I think, without doubt, Barrichello is ailing slightly, and Fisichella homing in on him nicely. The gap now down to just 2.2 seconds.
Yeah, and on the last lap, Fisichella was 2 seconds faster than Rubens Barrichello. So he's going to be right up with the Ferrari. Here is the order. Coulthard leads, Barrichello 2nd. Fisichella that you're looking at, closing up on the 2nd place Ferrari in 3rd position. Frentzen is out of the race. 4th then is Irvine. 5th is Carlo. 6th is Häkkinen. 7th is Jacques Villeneuve. 8th is Heidfeld. 9th is Johnny Herbert. 8 cars finished last year. 9 are running this year. And we are on lap 72 out of 78. All to play for. And still some time to play. Out of the tunnel, Ferrari. Rubens Barrichello, 2nd place. Where is Fisichella? He was only 2 seconds behind him when we last looked at him as he closed up. Both Fisichella, and there is Häkkinen looking now for 5th position and 2 World Championship points by getting ahead of Carlo, who continues steadfastly to stay ahead of the McLaren, whilst David Coulthard, nearly a lap ahead of them on the track, closes up on his teammate. Coulthard, Barrichello, Fisichella, Irvine, Carlo, Mika Häkkinen, what we're looking at.
Yeah, well, Coulthard can afford to relax now to the 24-second lead, but you saw what happened there with Frentzen. If you relax, and we've seen it happen with Senna, with Schumacher over the years, even the greatest drivers around here, they're all capable of a slight lapse, be a half a metre out, and you're having a silly accident into the wall. So Coulthard now backing off quite a lot, now down into the 1:23s, but he's got a 23-second lead at the end of the last lap with 6 to go, including this one. Now Fisichella just 1.9 seconds behind Barrichello, and it absolutely amazes me that Häkkinen, having just zoomed up to the back of Carlo, can't get anywhere near him now.
Yeah, he's not, you'd expect it to be harrying, and I remember one of the most exciting races I've ever seen was the closing stages of the 1992 Monaco Grand Prix here in Monte Carlo, when Ayrton Senna got ahead of Nigel Mansell, who'd come in to change a wheel, thinking he got a puncture when in fact it was just a loose wheel nut. And Mansell came out, caught Senna's McLaren, and harried it every inch of the way for the last 6 laps. He practically drove over the top of it, but Senna, just knowing the track as well as he did, a 6 times winner, stayed where he was, refused to let Mansell get past, and won the race, and subsequently became a 6 times and only 6 times winner at Monaco. So David Coulthard now is on his 74th lap. 4 laps to go at the end of this one, and the battle that you're looking at is the major one on the circuit, with 9 cars left out of the 22 starting.
Yes, Eddie Irvine just 15 seconds down the road from that battle, in a great 4th place, so hopefully his Jaguar will see it to the end and get some reasonable points this afternoon. Hakkinen now redoubling his efforts to put Salo under pressure and gain an extra World Championship point. Frentzen, he's going to have some explaining to do to Eddie Jordan on that one.
Well, I know that Jackie Stewart's son, Paul Stewart, in England, will be watching this race. He hasn't been with us for some time. It gives me an opportunity to say, Paul, that we are missing you in Formula One. Get well soon and come back. And your reward here, we sincerely hope, is going to see your man, Eddie Irvine, come home in 4th position for Jaguar's first World Championship points. The points that you and your father, Jackie, and everybody else, when it was the Stewart team, have done so much to enable them to be possible today. So, Salo and Hakkinen, with Hakkinen closing up now, but knowing that he mustn't be rash, because at least he's in the running for 1 World Championship point now, but he can only get it if he pressures Mika Salo to do something wrong. If he does something wrong himself, Mika Hakkinen that is, he will prejudice the chance of getting even 1 World Championship point, which could decide the World Championship in the end analysis. Last year, the winner, Mika Hakkinen, was only 2 points ahead of Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari at the end of 16 hard-fought races. Every point counts in Formula One.
And Hakkinen outbraking himself into the chicane, going straight across. Again, I don't think he'll get a penalty on that one. I wonder if he's got a similar problem to what he had earlier on. But is he picking up speed, or is Hakkinen cruising now?
I think he's slowed down there. Maybe he's got a brake problem, which was what caused him to overshoot the chicane. He's certainly visually going a lot slower there. But just listening to the engine. And he's got David Coulthard right up behind him now. There is the race leader, Coulthard, closing up on the 6th place man, Mika Hakkinen. They're both in the points. Now, Mika Hakkinen is 49 seconds ahead of Jacques Villeneuve. So if Hakkinen can just keep going, he's going to be in for 1 World Championship point. We're riding with Coulthard now, and you will see the other McLaren of Mika Hakkinen now as it drops down to the Mirabeau, the right-hander. There he goes from the Mirabeau down to the Grand Hotel hairpin. This is it coming up. David Coulthard, lap 76, 2 to go at the end of this one, leading by 20 seconds from Rubens Barrichello.
Curiously there was some kind of moisture on the camera lens of Coulthard's car, so I would imagine Hakkinen's car's pumping something out of the back.
And Ron Dennis stoically looking at the monitors in the McLaren pit lane area as we ride with David Coulthard coming up to his teammate Mika Hakkinen, looks in the mirrors, moves over, lets him through.
Oh, thanks, he didn't move over, he stayed on the racing line and made Coulthard go offline, so Hakkinen there doing the least he really had to do.
But it wasn't enough to stop David Coulthard going through, so he's coming through to complete his 76th lap now. There are just 4.1 racing miles between David Coulthard and his 2nd Grand Prix victory of the year 2000, having won the British Grand Prix, and he will move ahead of Mika Hakkinen if they stay where they are to 2nd in the World Championship, some 12 points behind Michael Schumacher. I said earlier on, all is not lost for McLaren, all is not gained for Ferrari. Rubens Barrichello is looking good now, because although Fisichella is closing up, there he is in the background, there's only 0.3 of a second between them in terms of their lap times to the advantage of Fisichella, and the Italian is not going to be able to catch the Brazilian unless Barrichello has a problem between now and the end of the race, which is the next lap but one. That's Fisichella. Coulthard, Barrichello, Fisichella, Irvine is fourth, still there. The Jaguar is still in fourth position. Salo is still fifth. Hakkinen is still sixth. Villeneuve has been lapped and is seventh. Heidfeld is eighth. Ninth is Johnny Herbert, 2 laps down. It looks as though both the Jaguars are going to finish, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen is out of the race, so there are only 9 runners left. As David Coulthard comes through now, a full lap ahead of Mika Hakkinen to start his 78th and last lap of the Monaco Grand Prix. Well, he has refused to give in. I said earlier on that he's always pointed out that he's younger than Hakkinen. He's got a lot less race experience than Hakkinen. He's convinced he can be world champion, and he has driven an absolutely magnificent race.
Yes, I think those days now of comparing himself with Hakkinen in that sort of lower light, he has to get out of, really. He's now in a great position if he can get to the end of this lap in the World Championship. And he's certainly been very pumped up all weekend. He said, I was so disappointed when qualifying ended. I was just loving driving the cars, giving me a lot of confidence here all weekend. And he went into the race with supreme confidence, and it certainly paid off for him. Would have been nice to see him and Schumacher head-to-head earlier on in the race to see which of the 2 cars and drivers had the real pace. But Coulthard now just a few corners from home, Murray.
And yet again, the man who started in pole position is not going to win the race. It's beginning to look as though there is a bit of a jinx on getting pole position, the thing that they all strive for. That didn't worry David Coulthard. Well, it did for a while, but it won't be worrying him now. Into the Rascasse for the 78th and last time out of it. And the McLaren mechanics will lean out and applaud him home. There they are. And David Coulthard wins the Monaco Grand Prix magnificently. Rubens Barrichello is only 17 seconds behind him. There he is, coming into second position with Giancarlo Fisichella's Benetton in third place. And Eddie Irvine is almost home in the Jaguar. This is going to be the first World Championship points finish for Jaguar if Irvine comes home, and it's going to be very, very well deserved. Where is he? Yes. He was 45 seconds behind David Coulthard. And the McLaren mechanics gather in the pit lane, congratulate each other, and I'm still looking for Irvine, who has not yet gone past us. There he is! There is Eddie Irvine into the swimming pool complex for the last time. I won't say he could coast home now, but he could, because he couldn't. But he is going to have the enormous privilege and satisfaction of giving Jaguar, as last year's second in the World Championship, Irvine, their first World Championship points. He finishes fourth, 3 points for Eddie Irvine and Jaguar.
Yes, collective sigh of relief there from the paddock. I think the Jaguar situation was looking pretty dire, but that'll be a fillip for them. Good news for that team. There's the points, Murray.
Michael Schumacher is, as I forecast, still leading the World Championship. He's 12 points ahead of Coulthard as opposed to 18 points ahead of Hakkinen. Mika Hakkinen has been passed by his teammate and is now third in the World Championship, 17 points behind Michael Schumacher. And Rubens Barrichello is only 7 points behind Mika Hakkinen. So it is a Ferrari driver, McLaren driver, Ferrari driver in the top 4. Giancarlo Fisichella, as a result of that third position here, is in 5th position, and Ralf Schumacher, who failed to score points, has dropped down from 5th position to 6th place.
I hope Coulthard's car passes scrutineering at the end of the race. Remember, he got thrown out of the Brazilian Grand Prix after a 2nd place there. 6 points he could well have used at the moment to keep Michael Schumacher under pressure, but nonetheless, he'll happily accept the 10 he's got today. Going past the Rascasse bar there, where he occasionally drops in for a drink when he's got a bit of free time here in Monaco. Coulthard now, he'll go to the line, and it's a wonderful, wonderful podium procedure. It's so unusual, and it's a great feeling, and a dream ticket really for a British driver to win the British Grand Prix, and then shortly afterwards the Monaco Grand Prix. They would be the 2 top ones on your list if you had to choose 2 to win in a year.
Well, McLaren are 5 points closer to Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship as a result of David Coulthard's win and Mika Häkkinen's 6th position and Rubens Barrichello's 2nd position for Ferrari. So they are still, if I'm right, 5 seconds behind as Fisichella congratulates David Coulthard. Well, it's a richly deserved win for David. He's worked tremendously hard for it. He was in a very strong position when the race started, not as strong as he would have liked to have been in 3rd position on the grid. And the Benetton people are already pouring the champagne because that's a podium place for them. And they had a 2nd place with Fisichella in Brazil, but it's only their 2nd podium position of the year. And the Benetton team, which is now owned by Renault, of course, is slowly being rejuvenated under the leadership of Flavio Briatore. David Coulthard is congratulated by Pasquale Lattanendu as he gets up into the royal box. Is it Prince Rainier himself or Prince Albert that's going to give him the award? Well, Ferrari are, as I worked it out in the end, 5 points still ahead of McLaren, 68 to 63. Williams are still in 3rd place ahead of Benetton, who are only 1 point behind them. And David Coulthard receives the winner's trophy from His Serene Highness Prince Rainier of Monte Carlo. Rubens Barrichello, 2nd. Giancarlo Fisichella, a local boy, is 3rd. And Eddie Irvine just misses going up there. Well done, David. The man from Twynham has done it again. That is David's 8th World Championship win. He won for Williams and he's now won time and time again for McLaren and has moved up to 2nd in the World Championship. Ron Dennis on the right. Scotland, Brazil, Italy, Ireland, Finland. Good spread of countries for the top 6 drivers. McLaren, Ferrari, Benetton, Jaguar, Sauber and McLaren again. Only one constructor has got both its cars in the top 6 point scoring places. The national anthem for David Coulthard's victory. David Coulthard lives here in Monaco. He hasn't got far to go home. His fiancée Heidi Wichlinski will be here. Very proud, I'm quite sure. And since McLaren share the national anthem with David Coulthard, we are not, I think, going to hear it again. The winner of the Monaco Grand Prix, David Coulthard, 16 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello, who was 2.5 seconds ahead of Giancarlo Fisichella. Eddie Irvine, a magnificent 4th for Jaguar's 1st World Championship points. 2 World Championship points for Sauber and for Mika Salo, who managed to stay ahead of his countryman Mika Häkkinen right to the end. Mika Häkkinen was lapped, and the lap record, the fastest lap in the race, Mika Häkkinen, 1 minute 21.5. So he really got cracking at the end, 7/10 of a second faster than his own fastest lap last year. Norbert Haug, the Mercedes-Benz competition chief, and Joe Ramirez, one of the most popular men in Formula One on the right, who has been in Grand Prix racing for so very long, have seen a superb win. Great for McLaren, great for David Coulthard, and not too bad for Ferrari in spite of Michael Schumacher's problems.